She says they're awesome, which does not surprise me, so I will engage. Okay, let's do that just in case, and then.
Good morning. So you all have probably met Nicole. I know she's been wandering around, but just a brief introduction on her. She is the communications director with Provo City, and she has really awesome experience. So we're really excited to hear from her today. But it sounds like this will be pretty engaging. So make sure to ask questions and just be involved. So, anyways, thank you. So I'll turn the time over to Nicole.
So intimidating. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. All right, I can see where my one fan is going to be. We'll get the rest of you warmed up. Can you hear me okay? All right, and I may wander because you all seem so far away. It's a pleasure to be here. I actually was on the hiring panel for Jessica. Commissioner Bolos asked me to join that, and so it was a fun experience to know that for the first time you were going to bring your communications in-house, if I understand it correctly, because having worked in so many cities, I really feel passionately about having strong communications in government, and so I was happy to help bring Jessica on in order for her to, I think, really elevate your communications. So let's go ahead and start with the presentation. Three roles at the time. They too had not had a formal communications role in their city. So this was the first time they brought one in. They brought one in because they had gotten massacred by Debbie Dujanovic at the time for having too many relatives in our city. I don't know if you recall this, but being a small city, there were a lot of related connections in various roles, and Debbie had done an investigative story, and Harriman was not the winner in that one, and so the mayor at the time felt really passionately that we needed to do a better job. I also was the deputy mayor and then economic development director at that time as well. And then I went to Sandy City under Mayor Tom Dolan, a much bigger city, about 95,000. Tom Dolan had been at it for 24 years. It was a fantastic mentoring experience with him. Brought me on as the communications director there. I eventually became the deputy mayor, so I did a lot of legislative work. While I was in Sandy, I had the foolish idea, Commissioner, of running for city council for Harriman, and so I served one term in Harriman on city council, which was fascinating because I was able to see both sides. You know, I know what it feels like to be a citizen. I know what it feels like to be a city council member and all of the challenges that you get with that. And I know how it feels to communicate, you know, the good and the bad as well. And then when my mayor lost, Mayor Dolan lost, then I went briefly into the private market with Layton Construction. Only took me about a year to realize that I missed and loved government communications. And so when Mayor Kaufusi reached out to me, I could not get back to government communications quick enough. And I love it. So I have been with Michelle, oh God, I think it's been a fast 3 years. That's how government works. And it is fantastic. I love government communications. There's, you know, in all of the things that I could do with PR, I can't imagine a better place for me, apart from the long hours and the low money and all of those things that we know. For me, having a purpose with what we're doing makes all the difference in the world. So if I do nothing else today, I hope that I can generate some excitement with this group, because for me, this is your One Weber Communications group launching off today. And how well that goes depends on all of you and how you come together. And I'll tell you a little bit about my experience of bringing our kind of One Provo team together when we get a little bit further on. And it's not an easy go. It doesn't happen immediately, but it's really fulfilling when it does. I feel like after 2.5 years of really trying to bring our group together, the things I hear in meetings, I'll hear directors say words like, one Provo. I'll hear another director talk about Provo Pillars, which I'll talk to you about. I can feel the branding going through our city. And it's just a slow process, but it does happen with diligent effort. And if it's going through our city internally, it's doing the same externally, which means we're doing the job that we need to do. I am 39 regardless. There's a few little mistruths up here, but that one, as far as you know, is true. I'm a Pisces. Who else is a Pisces in this room? Thank you, Chief. I feel a soul connection. And I would say my profession is a storyteller. And I want you to feel like your profession is a storyteller by the end of this day. Battle years in government, 15 years. I told you I started in Harriman in 2009. Three fires that we dealt with in Harriman, a lot of crises, a lot of great campaigns, a lot of good communication, and I'll show you a lot of examples of that today. Okay, I wanted to chat with you about my experience in Harriman. So 2009 is when I first got into government communications, and we had, if you'll recall, the machine gun fire. Who recalls? You have to, yes. It was a huge deal. We were a small city, as you'll recall. We had two primary artilleries in our city, 124th and 134th. When our city went down, we had to evacuate a quarter of our residents, most of them on the road trying to get out. And what I realized, as we were sitting with we sat with our fire chief, and we were standing outside, we could see the flames just 50 feet high, and the chief said, "There's no way we don't lose houses tonight." And it was a somber, you could smell the smoke in the air. First crisis I had ever dealt with of that magnitude, certainly. I had been, just a little funny aside, my husband and I had been on the Harley, we were riding, we were coming back, and I could start to see smoke coming up, and I was like, please, do not be here. And then we kept getting closer, still looked like the right place. We finally got off of Bangerter, and I knew it was Harriman. Didn't have my phone, stopped at my home, and could see immediately that I had calls. So I immediately went, and what I was wearing, which was jeans and a t-shirt, and immediately had to give an interview. So I was getting information from my city manager as I was driving to the city, got out of my car, and gave a situation report to a reporter. So it was sort of an immediate, we were in the frying pan, and it didn't change for a long time, because there was also repair work to do after that. But what was so poignant to me, as I was realizing that a quarter of our residents were leaving their homes without knowing if they would have anything to come back to, was the one thing, the only thing that I could give them was information. They had their phones, and if I was doing my job right, they could at least know what we were doing, how contained were we, where were the resources, all of the things. Communication was the only way that I could offer some sense of solace to those citizens. And what I'll tell you is that battle time that we shared together, you saw a united community after it. Now, things change and they get upset with you for other things, but when you do things right during a crisis, you can really come together. Why can't we do those things day to day and bring our community together? So that's kind of part of what we're going to talk about, is how do we community build daily? And so here I have 2009, as you'll recall, this was about the first incident in Utah that we used social media to really manage the incident. And so you'll kind of see here the main event that led others to see the kind of impact social media can truly make was the machine gun fire in 2010. Martin utilized the city's Twitter account to alert the residents about evacuations, road closures, and places to stay. After this, the Utah Division of Emergency Management even referred to Harriman as a prime example of how to put social media to good use. Communications matters. It matters absolutely during this. I think it matters more day to day, because when something like this happens, I don't have time to get to know my community. I should already know them. Hopefully I'm building my audience every single day, so when something like this happens, one, they know where to go for the information. Two, they trust the information that I've given them, because we've been established establishing and fostering a relationship. Again, for me, passion. In fact, the upper graphic up there, I actually got my master's degree a year ago, and the thesis that I wrote is creating a one city voice in government communications. And so that is the sum and substance of what I'm going to kind of talk about. Purposely wore black and white, because typically this is how governments communicate, just the facts. Are we really thinking about who we are communicating to? That's why my whole theme is communicating in color. I want you to start thinking it is not just the facts. We are creating relationships with our citizens. We're having a conversation. If I was trying to get to know the chief, if I just talked to him and never allowed him to respond back, he wouldn't find me very interesting to talk to, would he? But if we were talking and sharing, if I was just spouting numbers at him, or very minimal information, again, it's not a very interesting conversation. There are ways to engage in all of your channels that are better than just the black and white that government is typically used to.
Remember when you're not.
Oh, it'll take a minute. I know, it's because they're so far away, I feel a need to get closer. All right, so we are going to talk about communicating in color, and we're going to talk about, because we're communicating, it makes sense we would do the 5 W's. So we're going to start with the why, which is to earn trust and build community fundamentally. The who is creating your One Weber communications team, and what might that look like? And like I said, we'll share how we've done it. It may be different for you. You're going to want to have this organically work, but I think you need to commit that you are a team, because the truth of it is, our citizens don't see departments. They don't even see different, well, maybe different commissioner voices, but what they do see is Weber. So if there's a dysfunction in one department, it affects the other. If something's happening well here, it lifts the other. And so we rise or fall together, because they don't distinguish their government's reputation by, we love the police, but we really hate, another department, that kind of thing. I think overall they monitor our dysfunction as a whole, and so it's better for us to work together. What is the art of storytelling? What are we saying? We have our everyday information that we have to share. What I suggest to you is we need to be telling a higher story. We need to be telling us the branding story of who we are as a county, who you are as a department, and then of course there's the day-to-day information, but we should be sending an ongoing branding message with our various strategic postings. And then of course where we're doing this is the communications channels that you've chosen. Okay, why? Let's talk about why we're doing this to build trust. I've got a couple little notes here that I want to go over. It will not be surprising to you that the federal government of all of the levels suffers from the worst level of trust. The long history of distrust of American government has always had a silver lining, though, and that is local government. I don't know if you've ever heard David Church with the Utah League of Cities and Towns. I know he did some speaking with the county, but he has always said that local government is the most intrusive form of government. And I love that word because it is, in fact, us. Thank you, sir. I just love that. It is, in fact, our ability to get to the curbs of our citizens, to clean the streets by which they get to their jobs. All of those things give us the ability to have that personal touch, which means we really can develop a trust relationship that your national politics can't, that even your state politics can't, because we deal in communities. I think it's the best forms of government, county and city, because we are in the midst of the communities. So we need to really be fostering that with our communications. With national, again, it is all about the facts. That's what they have to disseminate out. They don't have the luxury of getting to have a bit of a personal relationship with those they serve. So you can see the trust, and this was before and after the pandemic. So the pandemic hurt all of us across the board, but you can see federal going down from 38 to 24. Even local suffered, but it has consistently over the years remained at about 70%. So we are doing good at a local level of being able to have that kind of connection. Let's see. So one of the, oh, and I mentioned this, one of the hidden casualties is that we all suffered from trust, and we're seeing the cracks of that. I don't know, well, I'm sure we're all seeing greater vitriol. Are you seeing greater criticism, greater vitriol in your county governments? Or is it about constant? What do you think? Sharon, Commissioner?
I've been here a year, don't ask me.
So are you hearing, so you, as departments, are you hearing much from your citizens negatively? Oh, come on, you have to be, or I'm going to go to Weber County. What county does not thank you? Right, of course. The other thing, too, for this one Weber group that I'm going to think of as I just mention it, sorry, you are on the front lines of communications. I don't know exactly what all of your direct roles are, but because you're in this room with communications training, I'm going to assume that you are on the front lines with the citizens. That is hard work. Not only is there a great responsibility for you to communicate effectively, but secondarily, you also get all of the blowback. And it is hard. So when we meet once a week with our team, a lot of it is sharing lessons. You know, this is how we handled this. And so that is important to you too. It's not just about us communicating similar messages and having good branding. It truly is this group realizing that you are the community builders in this county. You are the ones communicating those messages that can have an impact, and you're doing it together. And so that's going to, and you're helping each other when there's a need, because again, you become resources to one another as well. So I think there is time for us to continue to patch the trust that we see. It's going to be tough because government is, you know, you turn on any news station and it's dysfunction at the national level that is ridiculous. It is, you know, states that are struggling. We have a great Utah state, strong, but again, it's just something that we have to be vigilant and we have to be thinking about it every single day in order to patch that. 2/3, a good data point for you, 2/3 of trust in government is gained by experience had in interacting with your local government officials. And we talked about this from, you know, providing them services, putting out fires, picking up trash, running parks, whatever it might be. If that interaction is good, and this includes interaction on your social channels too, then again, we are building that trust. And the reason we need to do that, as we talk about, is this poisonous polarization that we're seeing. And as with all cultures, in government, we are the recipients of the polarization. You know, as we see everybody separating government from a national, they're retaining that on the lower levels. And so how can we show them that we are here together with them building community? We are not political. And that's the beauty of your local politics, is they're meant to be less political. And this is the point. We can be the unifier, at least locally, and certainly within our communities. All right, so how are we going to build this trust? I think it has to start with communications. Everything has to start with communications. So however you are communicating now, how can you do better? Are you on the right channels? Are you using the right content? How often are you posting? Are you getting engagements? Are you responding? We have to be dedicated to that process, just like I talked about talking with the chief. If he says something to me and I don't respond back, then we're not really having a conversation. And that's what we're looking for. How do we take our social media channels and truly have a city, county, citizen connection or a conversation? If we are able to start communicating, we will start gaining trust. And when they trust us, they want to engage. Because if they don't trust us, why engage? They don't feel like we're paying attention to them at all. So everything we do is to show that we want engagement. We want their feedback. And engaged, you can see, they better trust our policies. If they trust us on an ongoing basis, when we bring things that may be challenging, when we need to put forward a bond, it's a little bit easier because we've been building, you know, little trust drops in our bucket, and so it's better for us. And then the final stage, when they trust us, when they're engaged, then they become hopefully advocates for us, where they are speaking on our behalf. They don't have to be, won over anymore. They are, in fact, one of our community builders, one of our influencers. I'm joking. No medic, no care. I'm dying. Where's our firefighters? Where are our medics? Okay, excuse me, sorry. I know, I was like, no, I was just, it went down the wrong throat, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. To me, community building is creating a citizen government communication conversation. And so how are you doing that? That's the ultimate question, and we'll get into talking about that. Oh, let's see. How do I start these from here? Let's see. Oh, shoot. Are these not going to work? What do you think, Jessica? It's not showing up on here. Let's see if another one will work. Oh, see. This is going to be so bad. On Canva, should we try? There's so many videos that we don't get on. Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay. Let's do. Oh, right here.
Put it back in the computer.
All right, while we're waiting, so we don't waste time, I'm going to hand you guys these out.
Oh, this is the drive.
That was okay. So if we made a copy to the computer and then
I just put it on the desktop, so I don't know if the videos are in it or not. What's this one?
I don't know, that was just sitting there.
Yeah, unless they're embedded.
All right, while we're waiting and to try and get you guys to chat just a little bit, what are your thoughts about those of you that are on the front lines of communications? What are your thoughts? What brings you here today? What are you hoping? I hope it's not just mandatory.
I can log into my email and pull up the presentation. That way and the videos might show up. She has it on Canva.
I don't know if Canva's on this. You can just do that online. Go ahead.
Especially after COVID, right? All of a sudden, whatever filter we had before, which wasn't much, is long gone, right? It's true. What else? Tell me what else you want to hear of this from your individuals. Go ahead.
I would love to know better advice how to use somebody when they're just red hot, when they're just
address that, how we listen, and then the calm back to that. And then there are times, frankly, when we'll agree to disagree. You all know that. However good we are, however right we are, you know, at the end of the day. But I think if we listen with intent to help and offer a solution, if we are able to, we do that. We are absolutely looping back. I think the loop back matters so much. When we tell someone we're going to get back to them, do we have a solution? And then a lot of times online, when I notice when you're getting hammered online, sometimes if you just wait a beat, you'll, I don't know, I'll use my today. If you just wait a beat, because we have people who are advocates of ours online, you'll find that they will often jump in and, you know, they will be the ones to share the correct information, which is lovely when they do that, because then we don't have to, and they wouldn't trust us as much as someone else anyway, right? It's the delivery too. I'm so sorry. Should we just do my computer?
We can.
Where's that one?
Do you want that information?
It was on that email that I sent you. Can you get it from that? Do you want me to try and log in on Canva? I've got it. Where is it? So sorry, so sorry.
Keep walking.
So you can't just run it off the link I sent you, huh?
I can try and log in again.
But it wasn't showing it.
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm not sure. I would
Let's
just
just
try
do
one
yours on
and
the
see.
screen.
Yeah, probably not one.
Okay. Oh, it's not on either one. Okay, now we just need to get it up on the screen. There we go.
So we need to
test will be a video.
Yes, okay. So sorry. Okay, let's get back to business. I am so sorry. Technology, not my strong suit. All right, so we talked about community building. I truly believe local governments are one of the key players to build communities, and I can't think of anything better. This is a little bit long. I'm going to play about 3 minutes of it, but this is by a gentleman. What did I do with the book? Oh, here we go. This is by a gentleman by the name of Peter Kageyama. I'm not sure I'm saying it right. He has some really great videos where he specifically goes around the country and finds those communities that are having the ability to magically connect with their citizens and how they're doing it and how they're creatively finding that and why it matters. So I'm going to play about 3 minutes of this, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
You're trying to do something that no one has ever done before. You're trying to discover something that has never been observed, and so it's going to be challenging.
Thank you very much. In March of this year, there was a wedding in Durham, North Carolina. And like most weddings, it had brides, it had grooms, it had flowers, tuxedos, beautiful dresses, it had receptions. Unlike most weddings, it had 1,600 brides and grooms, and they weren't marrying each other. They were marrying the city of Durham. In what was called the largest civic union in history, these 1,600 people stood up in front of their peers and their friends, and they pledged their love and fealty to the city of Durham. And their pledge included promises to keep the streets clean and safe, to buy local, to support local arts and culture, to protect the environment, and to vote responsibly. What was also unique about this was it was not done by the city. It was done by a bunch of people who came together and said, really, we love this city. What are we going to do? And someone came up with the idea, let's have a wedding. And they decided to raise a little bit of money for charity, and they set a fairly modest goal of about $12,000, and they more than doubled that and raised over $25,000. Around this same time, Mayor Dave Bing of Detroit receives a tweet, says, hey, Mayor, how come there's not a RoboCop statue in Detroit? To which the mayor, who's on social media, politely but rather tersely replies, thank you, but there are no plans for a RoboCop statue in Detroit. Too late. The idea was out there, and within a matter of hours, Detroit is buzzing about this idea. It's like, why don't we have a statue of RoboCop in Detroit? And so a Facebook group forms within a matter of hours, and all of a sudden now people are saying, we're going to build a RoboCop statue. And instead of going to the city or to the Arts Council, they said, no, we're going to fund it ourselves. And they start this Kickstarter campaign, and within a matter of days, despite what the local press called irony run amok, they raised over $67,000 to build this statue, and it's actually going to happen. It's pretty amazing. Now, what do those two stories have in common? Well, they start with people who are emotionally engaged with their city, people who love their city, and people who want to do something above and beyond ordinary citizenship and maybe do something extraordinary for their city. Now, we'd like to think that that's actually a fairly common notion, but it turns out it's actually not. When Gallup, in conjunction with the Knight Foundation, conducted their 2008 to 2010 Soul of the Community Survey, which is basically taking the temperature of our relationships with our cities, and they found out that that relationship is actually not very good. 40% of people said that they were unattached to their cities, 36% say they're neutral, and just 24%, less than 1/4 of us, say that we are attached to our cities. Now, attachment is not love. Attachment says maybe you voted, you're part of the neighborhood watch, and you volunteer once a year. Congratulations, you're attached. It doesn't feel very warm and fuzzy, but what was also interesting is at the same time, Gallup was looking at economic data, and what they found was very interesting. The cities that had the highest levels of emotional engagement, passion, and loyalty also had the highest levels of local GDP and economic vitality. Now, they were not going to go so far as to say these were causal, but they were clearly one of those interesting statistics that move together, and we pay attention to those statistics that move together.
How good is your relationship with your citizens? Are you going to get married anytime soon? How do you feel? Police, you guys are interacting with your citizens every day. How strong do you feel their attachment is to Weber? Chief, I'm going to go right to you. And you've put in a lot of effort for that. You guys have a community policing. What kind of outward effort are you doing there? And like programs and things like that? Okay. What we're doing when we are communicating with our citizens is establishing our return on investment. And there really is not a higher return on investment than government services, and I know I'm speaking to the choir on this. When you look at, we've all seen this graphic that we've all used at city, county, or any other government level to show how much of your dollar is going towards the services that you receive. And far and away, local government gives the best return on investment. But if we're not telling that story, then they can't possibly know that. When I was in Sandy City, we started a campaign that we called Brought to You by Property Tax. And it was, we actually did signs where we would put signs out in the parks or anywhere else that we could show a service to remind them just visually what they were getting for their property tax. And that's when we talk about communications campaigns and things. We think they understand. I guarantee they don't. We can't tell them too many times what we're doing, because not only are they not so inclined to listen to us as government, but we are fighting against all of the white noise that's much more interesting than we are, frankly, in terms of government. So we have to be creative with what we're doing. So how can we be creative? This is just a little fun one for you. I'm going to age myself here. Chevy Chase Funny Farm. Anybody seen it? He's trying to sell, they are desperate to get this house off the market. And so they have set up a scene. It's all in the packaging of how they have set their house to sell. And here you go. This is what I'm talking about. Be creative with how you communicate.
Going around front. Good.
And they have set up this whole scene for you that haven't seen this. The ducks are planted.
Cue the deer.
Great. Play it cool, honey. Let's not let them think we're too eager.
Yes. Yes.
Go.
That is one way you tell a story, and that's my point, is how do you package your story? It's not just the facts. It's how you think of when you're putting your house on the market. We don't have a messy house. We make it look nice. We show the nicest aspects of it. That's what we're doing with communications. We're highlighting what makes us different and better. Okay, the One Communications team, I want to kind of walk through. Well, first, let's do this one. The challenge of getting your team together. I mentioned that we've been working on our One Provo team for about 2 years. This is what it has felt like a lot of the time.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
In a sense, that is exactly what we're doing as cat herding. You've got to figure out how to get your team together.
BDS, managing the complexities of the digital economy.
There we go. Okay. You've got to figure out how to gather your team together. I started my One Provo team, and we had introduced, and I'll get into this, well, let me back up. I'll tell you that story in a minute. When Mayor Kaufusi brought me on, she had one directive for me. It was very specific, and that was that I was to eliminate the department silos that had existed in Provo and bring us all together to communicate as one. And they had been communicating as silos for many, many years. We had paid for very expensive branding, none of which was being utilized well throughout the city. Departments were doing their own thing. We had no consistent storytelling about Provo. You just had the police telling a story. You had Parks and Rec, our ice rink, everybody telling their own story. Nothing cohesive, nothing fitting together, certainly nothing that was trying to build our community. We were simply communicating about the services one-off as we provided them. So yes, is that communicating? Absolutely. That's the bare minimum, however, of how we should communicate, is just the services we provide. Why are we providing them? We're providing them to build a community. We want those who live here to be proud to live here. So we are placemaking as a county, as a city, whatever government organization. We are not only trying to woo people here for all of our great characteristics, but those that live here ought to have a sense of pride in doing so. And the government organization is so positioned to help that. You have the touch points. I passed out these worksheets. We can go through those a little bit, but one of your touch points is that you are able to meet those residents right at their home, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's your utility bill, whether it's an opt-in social media, whether it's a commissioner's blog or a podcast, whatever it is, we have the ability to get to them directly, and so we can community build. So with Mayor Kaufusi's directive, we created the One Provo team, and it was painful. I hated going to those meetings. We every week, we are consistent. We would come into those, but for the longest time, we couldn't quite figure out what it was that we were doing and how we were going to work together. So about a year, well, about the time I finished my master's, because I did that. Here we go. Kind of the deliverable of my master's degree was this document for our One Provo group, which was to try and formalize this group. As I said, we meet once a week. We established what you can see here. Oh, they're not up there. You guys can't see this? Oh, there we go. Okay. This is what we established here. So these are our mission and goals. So in your handouts, it is all too about thinking about your goals and your strategies. So let's just go through this while I'm holding it. The organization touch points. What platforms are you using? Who is the best audience for that? What is the usage? How often are you using it? These are things that when you get together as a team, are you guys meeting weekly right now? Do you guys meet together at all? Jessica? Like as a formal basis, okay, so right now, yes. Okay, so right now, your communications units are operating singularly. Are you communicating on a Teams? Is there any cross communication between you? No, I'm seeing no. Okay, okay. So, okay. Well, there you go. The directive has now been set by the commissioner. I like it. Well, the beauty of this, that is exactly how we started to. And in fact, not only did we start that way, but there was resistance to coming together. Of course, when the mayor tells you to do it, you do it, but you can feel resistance. And so, again, what I would say to you is unity in your communications, people, is a must. And so don't fight it. It will just make everybody better. That idea of the boat floating, it will make everybody better. And it's interesting, and I'm going to point to the police because we have so many here and because I had an interesting conversation with my chief about this. Your public safety PIOs almost always operate separately. So if you have a communications person in the city, you often, and just like you have set up, have your own PIOs within your public safety divisions. Do the firefighters have their own PIOs as well? Yeah. So that would be as I would expect. And so when our police chief, for the first time, brought on a citizen PIO, I was telling the police back there, And what was interesting is we now have a directive where the mayor wants all of our departments working together. We have a police department that is transforming from the model that you are operating under, which is multiple PIOs, to a civilian PIO who is now working full-time and handling not only, you know, the regular incidents, but also kind of these campaigns, the programs they're doing, all of those things. And as we were trying to figure, we'd already had the PIO group established when they brought in the civilian PIO, and what I noticed was, as she was coming on, she was reluctant to join the group. And I could sense her reticence. I could sense, you know, either she would not be at the meeting or she was, you know, busy. And you are busy. I shared with the police PIOs, there is no busier PIO than a police PIO. So, you know, either she was busy and she just wasn't really coming into the overall branding that we were trying to do. And what I shared with the police chief, because I brought him in to try and fix this, and I shared with him, when you have a county, in this instance, a county PIO, that the role of that person, even though we have our individual PIOs down here, is to make sure that our voice is consistent, that our branding is consistent. And so if we are looping in, so what we do, how we do it, is all of my department PIOs will loop me in if there's ever any media contact. So nobody talks to the media without notifying me first, because, and what's the value in that? So if we have a reporter that just calls up to the ice rink, tell me your name, I'm sorry. Mariko? Mariko. So if you had an incident and a reporter called up and wanted an interview, what would you do? Yeah. Do you guys have you ever gotten an interview request? Have you? Okay. So but you handle it within your division, within your, yes, okay. So here's my suggestion to you. It is so easy to lose control of a message, and so it would be, if you are serious about kind of bringing in this group, having that singular communications contact that you just ping. So when you get that call, you're pinging Jessica and you're saying, I got this request, and then what I do more often than not, I find out what the situation is. And then do exactly what you did. Have your manager, you know, we talk about talking points a little bit. Maybe here's 3 or 4 things we want to talk about, and then they handle it. The beauty of it, though, is Jessica now knows, and what Jessica can now do is let the commissioners know. So what I do is every time we're getting a media request or we're putting out a media release, I'm making sure that my council gets notified first, because nothing makes them more unhappy than to hear from a citizen about something that they don't know anything about. So again, you can see the power of the internal communications when we get ourselves organized. And so, you know, I had my economic development director had a podcast opportunity. He just sends me a quick email. Sounds great. Sometimes I join in, sometimes I don't, but we all know what's going on. And when we meet around the table every week, we're sharing what's going on. You're saying, I just had a great interview, here's the link. Let's all look at it, make sure we like the way we're learning together. And that's the value of you coming together. Otherwise, does anybody even know that you had a story? Maybe, maybe not. All of our communicators have no idea that you just had a great opportunity to share something wonderful about Weber. So when we share, all of a sudden we can take that link of that great interview and we can put it on our channels, and maybe we decide to put it as part of, you know, the newsletter, whatever it is. We bring all of our communication collateral together, and then we decide how we're strategically using it. If it's done this way, it's just a one-off. You know, it's just maybe some people heard it, maybe they didn't. But also, that's probably you're a great quality of life component in Weber. Let's talk about, you know, how great, in that story we could also talk about accomplishments you have, programs you offer. So we use that media opportunity to then tell a bigger story about you. That idea.
Can I ask a question? How deep are you going with this concept? I ask that because I'm not getting any of it. For example, Mariko, she is a specific brand. She's in the larger department, which is the Cultural Park and Rec department.
Good, that's good.
Fairgrounds, they're their own brand, they're a performing arts theater, its own brand. So, you know, it's daily with what
Yep.
we're doing. Are you saying, I mean, I think what you're saying is good. We need to be, Jessica can be sharing out what we're doing. We can, obviously, if there's something else, we can share out what she is doing as a county brand.
Yeah.
But how deep are you going into these brands and sharing what you're doing out?
Yeah, so we will. Let me move quicker. Let's do that. So, all right, so this is the organization, this is the vision of our group, as you can see. Welcome home is our city slogan, so we want to create that kind of community. So we created this team, and then our goal is to eliminate those silos and create an open government. That are the three words we always hear: transparent, participatory, and collaborative. So here is the team, and it's all of our departments. The mayor required every department to determine who their PIO was, so their other duty as assigned is coming to this. You can kind of see our objectives, and let's not belabor that because I think they're... So the toolkit, and we'll get to the messaging and the branding here in a second. So we have the team together. We have identified ourselves as one Provo. We are meeting once a week. And here are the other kind of tools in our toolbox to make sure we're communicating well. Microsoft Teams. So we are meeting every week either in person or via Teams. And on that Teams, we have our editorial calendar that shows all of our strategic messaging. We have documents that we're sharing with one another. We have chats during our team meetings, or if someone needs help, maybe one department has a legal question, they will chat with Mary Ditto, who is our legal PIO in that group. And so what happens all of a sudden is just simply by agreeing to meet once a week and have Teams coordination, you have got stronger internal communications happening. So even if you started to bring a few of these things in, just being aware. So even if your separate brands are operating very independently, and we do that, you know, similarly like with our Covey Center. It has a very different brand than the rest of the city and operates independently. But the PIOs are able and required to communicate with one another. We use Sprout Social, where you could schedule your posts, but you can also monitor your analytics. You don't need that, but what I would say is pay attention to how your posts are doing. If all we're doing is throwing posts out there and never paying attention to what hits, do they like reels? Do they like longer posts? Is it pictures? What is it that's resonating? If we're not paying attention, then it's just shooting in the dark. So at least start paying attention to where your big hits are. We use Qualtrics. Do you guys have Qualtrics in your county? Survey tool? No? Okay. So we, again, with that feedback idea, we try and do regular surveys as well, so we're getting their feedback. Our 311 has a software called Point of Business, and so again, we have our 311 PIO that is on that group, and one thing he's always reminding us, because he's the front lines, he's where people are calling, and he'll get with the group and say, I don't know what's going on. We're telling people if they have any questions to call 311, and all of a sudden there's an activity and I don't even know about it, or there's a traffic problem and I don't know about it. So again, the message we send to our citizens, if we're not acting on it, then we're hurting ourselves, and that's what we were doing. So we just get better and better. The editorial calendar that I told you about, ongoing training, and then just the ability to meet together and share ideas. Okay, here's the editorial calendar I was talking about. So it's just simply an Excel spreadsheet, but everybody could access it. And I'm going to jump to branding for a second because of his question, and then we can go back to this because I want you to see. So this gets to kind of what you can talk about. And I wanted to get into really this idea of storytelling, or really thinking creatively about how you're doing it. Because again, we can just say the facts. We can just notify to notify. Or we can do it in such a way that they might actually remember, that they might actually feel connected to us. And that's really, and it doesn't take really any more time, so why would we not? Storytelling, I mean, who doesn't love stories, right? I mean, everybody would, if you just prefer, you engage with a story. And so it is something that we all understand, we all resonate with. We can establish our value, but do it in such a way that we bring the emotional touch to it. We can bring our people together when they realize the great community that we live in, and then inspire them and motivate them, just as our speaker talked about, to be in love with our county, to be advocates for us and what we're trying to do. Definitely simplifies complex messages. I mean, of course, that's the very essence of a parable, is to take something that's challenging, wrap a story around it, and all of a sudden you've gained an understanding. So how can we use those techniques? And then again, back to the sense of community. So getting back to messaging, and this is where I get to the elevated messaging. So to your point, tell me your name, sir. Marty, thank you. That was a great question. Because this is, again, your group is going to look different than our group, and you're going to have to kind of figure out how that is. What we tried to do is, we know every department has their goals and their strategies and what they're trying to push. What we tried to create in this group is, where are those 360-degree messages that tell about our city and what is great about, and then of course what falls under that is all of, you know, the departments that are holding it up. But what is that messaging that we can start placemaking about our community? And we'll get into that. And then also, you know, the everyday communications that you do. So we had a retreat with the mayor and her staff, and for the first time ever, we released our first city mission statement. You can see it here. It was exceptional care for an exceptional community. Mayor came in, she was very passionate about wanting a mission statement, not only one that we could really drill in with our employees and build up their morale, but also outside. We want them to feel that they are living in an exceptional community. So can you see, just from that brand, it's simple. We use it all the time. We, in our newsletter, will throw out, this is exceptional, that is exceptional. We look for exceptional people in our community and hide them. So now all of it, or hide them, and showcase them. But what we're doing is, now we have a thread of exceptional, and we weave it into our communications on social media posts. When we had our State of the City, right after we launched this, the name of it was An Exceptional Evening with Mayor Kaufusi and Friends. And the idea was, we were highlighting the exceptional things that the city was doing for them, and then we were highlighting the exceptional things out in the community. And so we invited a speaker from BYU, we invited a speaker from New Skin, because a community is much more than the government that operates it. But you see, it's all in the packaging. Yes, I can continue to tell them that their garbage is going to be picked up and that we're going to be clearing the roads, but shouldn't I also be telling them how wonderful we are, and we're exceptional, and here's why we're exceptional? So you package your messaging, and pretty soon they start rolling that off. And so what I'm suggesting is, continue and go as hard as you have been going with all of your individual brands. But what can we do to bring everything together and say, Weber is great because? And then as we're doing our individual messaging, we're saying, and then I'm going to show you how we did this so you can get the idea. So we have this overall mission statement now, and then we entered, oh yes, Commissioner, go ahead. Yeah, I saw it, yep. Yep. Yes. I did when I was with Jessica, I saw that and I loved it as well. It's very clever.
So if we could, when you're doing your presentation, because I think those have been really pretty effective.
Yep.
So I just was hoping you could maybe speak to us.
Okay. Well, and I will. And I had noticed winning in Weber, and I loved the Guardians one. I can't remember if we saw it. I can't remember if we saw a video. Someone talked about it, but I thought it was very clever. So along with your winning in Weber, I would call that kind of a parallel to what we did with our Provo pillars. And this kind of gets into the packaging as well of how we sell ourselves. You know, back to Chevy Chase, you know, you're straightening up the house. Yes, we can say that we have a strong economy, and we can post about it a ton. And yes, we can say that we have wonderful recreation elements. And by the way, your county does have wonderful recreation elements, and you've branded yourself wonderfully well with that. And of course, we can say that we're, you know, guardians of the public and the safety, and, you know, all of there's fundamentally things that people want to have. And so when we did a survey, the top 4, or you know, 4 of the top were the obvious ones. And I say that they're obvious because I'll say them to you, and they will be the 4 things that your residents want. But an economically vibrant community. They want to be safe. They want to have a good quality of life and feel welcomed in their community. And then their hope is that their government is visionary and is looking ahead and doing good things with their taxpayer dollars. So we took those 4 areas that we knew were fundamentally important, and yes, we could have just continued to talk about them piecemeal, but why not package them? Much like you did with Winning in Weber, because it rolls off the tongue. We can use it. We're trying to get placemaking, getting people excited about where they live. So we identified the Provo pillars and what they are, and the way let me come back here. The Provo pillars themselves, and I've just outlined them for you, are welcoming, which is all of your quality of life, your outdoor, your recreation, your ice rink, your Covey Center, all of those things that are the heart of your community, we have under our welcoming pillar. Next to that, and the mayor actually has an order that she wants these in, and these are actually out of order, but we have welcoming, and then for her, that's the number 1 thing. She wants her community to be welcoming. The next most important thing to her is that they be safe and sound. So when we repeat this, it is welcoming, safe and sound. Safe and sound is the pillar that includes, you know, all of those things that are police and fire, obviously, but emergency services, putting in crosswalks. We just put in elevated crosswalks on our center street. We could have just told them that we put in elevated crosswalks, which we did, but what we did is remind them this is an example of how Provo is now more safe and sound. I am reinforcing that Provo Pillars brand every single day with every single post, because the beauty of these is everything we do for services falls under one or more of these pillars. So it's very easy to package it up. And the way I communicate it, let me go here. I call the Provo Pillars our brand promise to our citizens. And I read it like a sentence. Provo City is welcoming, safe and sound, economically vibrant, and forward-looking. And we repeat it all the time. And the beauty of it is, after 2 years, I can tell you, I was in a director's meeting the other day, and like I told you, I heard one mention the, you know, safe and sound pillar, or, you know, the forward-looking pillar. They have got the language. They are speaking our branding language internally. We did a neighborhood meeting, and we had our chiefs get up, and the chief got up and said, I'm going to tell you how we're more safe and sound. And I was a happy PIO, because that means the message is working, that not only, and they're not spouting it because I told them to spout it, they feel it. And that to me is because it is a brand promise. Provo City is welcoming, safe and sound, economically vibrant, and forward-looking. Now, how are we showing it? And this is where we get to the branding that I'm going to talk about. So we have the brand, and what I require of all of my PIOs is messaging consistent with our overarching brand. What are you doing that fits underneath one or more of these pillars? Because I guarantee everything you're doing fits under one of them. So when you're communicating, I want you to remind our citizens that not only are we giving them a service, but we are completing our brand promise to them. So they are hearing touches all throughout the year that we are fulfilling the promise that we made to our citizens. So here's the video we put together as we were releasing our mission statement and how we feel like that dovetails with our Provo pillars.
Great cities don't just happen. There are more than 20,000 incorporated communities in America, with many struggling. Others, like Provo City, are community building together and achieving national accolades for their efforts. Milken Institute recognized Provo City as the nation's best performing city for the third year in a row, with Mayor Michelle Kafusi accepting the top award amongst other deserving cities including Austin, Miami, Denver, and Los Angeles. But success is never stagnant. Provo City remains dedicated to focusing on what makes us a thriving community. Visionary planning to create opportunity. Comprehensive public safety so all feel safe. Strong economic momentum driving future growth. And a high quality of life that truly says, welcome home. Known as our Provo Pillars, they serve as our foundation and what Provo City will always strive to be. Economically vibrant, safe and sound, forward-looking, and welcoming. But being good should never be good enough. We are setting our standards even higher to achieve exceptional. This new standard is now the driving force behind our first Provo City mission statement. Exceptional care for an exceptional community. So what does it mean to be exceptional? By definition, it means unusually good or outstanding. But more importantly, how do we become an exceptional community? Exceptional results arrive only when exceptional people put in exceptional effort. It never arises by accident or good fortune. By continually working together, we will achieve our mission statement. While there's much to divide us, we can come together with community pride for the exceptional standards we are achieving and a shared One Provo spirit for continued success. Coming together is the beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. Henry Ford.
So you see how we brought all of those pieces together. We brought the exceptional standard, which the mayor wants every employee thinking of. And in fact, we have that mission statement. In fact, we have that mission statement on every wall in every department. When we launched it, we had little business cards that we handed out. This is how you start to get a brand going, but you have to be patient and you have to be diligent. And then going back to the, I want to show you quickly the editorial calendar. The message doesn't get out unless you make sure it gets out. And so you'll see on our editorial calendar here that, again, everybody can access on their teams. We discuss it. But you can see here, January through March, we were highlighting the pillars, or I'm sorry, the welcoming pillar. Where'd I go? So sorry. Going all over the place, just a second. Oh my gosh, what did I do? There we go. Okay, sorry, all over the place. Okay, so we did the first 3 months welcoming, then we did safe and sound, and we had to teach our PIOs how to storytell. Because again, what I find with government workers, you are the best there are. You are passionate. You are good at doing your job. You get it done. You are horrible at telling people that you're doing your job. You don't need pats on the back. You just get it done. What we need you to do, though, is tell your story. We need to know your stories. We need to know those good news things. Tell me about the good faces in your department. Tell me about something that happened that I would never hear about, but for the fact that now as a county we're talking. You would be amazed what comes out of the woodwork when we start to talk about that. But I guarantee if you all got a storytelling mindset, you would never run out of story ideas. There's nothing we can say too much to those that we serve in various different ways. And so we just continue at it. We went 3 months and we were making sure that as they were seeing social media posts, that they were all tagged with our hashtags, Provo Pillars, whatever the appropriate pillar was, welcoming. So again, you're feeding the brand and it is slow going, but you all have to be dedicated to, you know, if it's winning in Weber, so winning in Weber is great. I love alliteration. It rolls off the tongue. But what does it mean to win in Weber? Conceptualize for me. Tell me, give this to me. What does it mean? Why are you winning in Weber? You have to be able to tell me why. Okay, excellent. You've got great staff. we should be talking about our staff then. Tell them, and by the way, while we're talking of staff, as PIOs, who are your experts in your organization? We want your chief out there talking. We want them to feel confident with those who are making the decisions. And so media training, decide who your experts are. Like we've had our water department talking about this great ASR, aquifer storage and recovery. We have, in fact, I'll show you a video by him. He is a brilliant expert on water, and I want him in front of the media. I want him to give me great content, but I need to make sure he's ready to get in front of the media. I need to make sure he knows how to craft the messages, and then I want to make sure that every citizen in Provo hears that amazing story, and I'll share it with you too. Just as not a funny aside, but we had been working on the Provo Pillars with my PIOs for literally 2 years, and I came to them and I wanted to, again, I was trying to teach them to storytell. They were struggling with ideas and how to tell individual pillar stories, and so I had 4 boards that they could write on, and we had the markers, and I had them sitting down. I said, okay, let's talk about the 4 pillars. All right, let's go. What's the first pillar? And it was like this room. It was silent. And then one's like, yeah, I think one, welcoming, right? And then one's like, yeah, economically vibrant. And then it was and I literally wanted 2 years of talking to the communicators in my city, and they could not repeat the message that I just did, the brand promise. So I hunkered down, and we'll talk for the last 4 months of this year. Every single month in our newsletter, we highlighted the insert of our newsletter was a pillar. And I had and I'll show you this, but all kinds of articles, and the PIOs were forced to come up with the storytelling to accompany. So as the newsletter circulated the city with whatever pillar we were highlighting, we were pushing out social media messages from all the various departments. So if it was welcoming, we were having something on our ice rink. Oh, we opened a new park, and hey, we have a digital inclusion program. So we were thinking of all of those things that illustrate we are absolutely a welcoming community. And what I will tell you is when I started to hear the directors and all of those kind of popping off with the branding words, it was after we put a dedicated 4-month focus where every communicator in our city was determined to show how we were living and breathing the Provo Pillars. That's what you have to believe in. So winning in Weber. How are you winning? I want to hear it. What else? Your employees, I got one. What else do you love about Weber? Oh, come on. Okay. Okay, what else? Oh, you are a quiet group. Thank you. Okay, good, and well attended, I would assume. You guys have a long, do you have a lot of programs that have run for a number of years, so some tradition to those? Yeah, nice, okay. Anything else? Okay, what you're going to have to come up with as a group is what it means to be winning in Weber. You have to define that. Winning in Weber, while it rolls off the tongue, doesn't tell me why I'm going to be winning in Weber. Every one of you is a key reason why there is winning in Weber. So figure out what that is. What is the strength? The Guardians, what did you call it? I love it. More Than Guardians, thank you. More Than Guardians. That's a great campaign. Under mine it would be, we're showing this More Than Guardians under our Safe and Sound pillar. And we kind of illustrate that when we're showing the various campaigns that they're doing. So what I would suggest to you is flesh out. What does it mean to be winning in Weber? Because we can't just communicate that they're winning in Weber, we need to show them how. And not only how they're doing it, but what we're doing to contribute to them winning. Remember how we're establishing our return on investment? What are we doing to show why Weber is the best community for them? And if we can't articulate it in this room, then we need to be able to think more through it. What does that mean? Because what I guarantee is there are endless reasons why you're winning in Weber. So we need to figure out what those are, and then is there a way that we can message that or package that so it's easily communicated? And that was the whole purpose of the Provo Pillars. Provo has nothing different than you guys have. You guys are a welcoming community, I'm sure. You are economically vibrant. You are safe and sound, and I know you're looking forward. What we chose to do was take what we knew were 4 really important things to every citizen in every community and package it. That is communicating in color. That's kind of what I'm talking about, is how do we do that so all of a sudden they start to be, yeah, we do live in an exceptional community. That's right, we really do. I love our One Provo spirit. Those are the things we're trying to work on. Okay, let me go past the editorial calendar here. Oh, let me go back here too, because I skipped this one. So if you look at the hierarchy of our messaging and how we're trying to keep track of it, we have a mission statement. We're striving for exceptional with everything we do. We have the 4 Provo pillars that hold those up that we've talked about. And the Mayor Kaufusi, at the beginning of each of her beginning of each of her terms, she identified key projects that she wanted completed. And the first term, she called them the Big 5. This time it was the Big 6. And the importance of these are, she chooses ones that are lofty projects that perhaps have been sitting for quite a while. They're significant. They require more than one department to really get their heads down and make them happen. These are big swings. She doesn't care if we miss, but she wants to move them along. And they all then fit under a Provo pillar, at least one. And so those are kind of the 3 tiers that we are communicating about. So again, when we're pushing out our regional sports park that's going to be opening this fall, we are talking about the fact that it's, we are generating millions in revenue as we enter into the sports tourism market. We are talking about the fact that we were running out, which is our economically vibrant pillar. We're talking about the fact that before the regional sports park was underway, we had teams that didn't have fields to play on. This is a more welcoming piece for all of our citizens. So as we're showing them what we're accomplishing, we're reminding them that it meets the brand promise, and we're doing it exceptionally, and we're drilling it in over and over again. Okay, let's go this one. Okay, so now what I want to do is go more into the branding, and I'm going to kind of show you each pillar and various ways that we have publicized that through the departments. And there's so much I couldn't show. I just grabbed a few, but so here is our latest. So this was what we shared, and again, kind of showing how the branding continues to flow. So we just had a citywide neighborhood meeting that was hosted by the mayor, and so we were meeting with all of our neighborhood chairs, and we wanted to reinforce what it is that we focus on as an administration and as a city. So this will sound familiar to you.
Provo, the 4th largest city in Utah, boasts a population of nearly 120,000. While it may seem like any other community from a distance, Provo City has committed to distinguishing itself to be truly exceptional. Thriving with a proud past and a promising future, Provo City is guided by a vision for continued prosperity centered around 4 key citizen priorities: public safety, economic development, quality of life, and visionary planning.
Sorry. I'm not going to make you hear that again because it's very similar. But you will see that same idea. You find what your brand is. So winning in Weber, we define what that is, and then how are we continually communicating that? What are the elements of winning? For us, it's our 4 Provo pillars, and then we bust out those projects underneath or campaigns underneath. So again, let's define that, and then I don't know if you guys use, we'll maybe get into the channels here in a little bit, but video works really, really well, and shortened videos. So as you're looking for channels on how to communicate this out, that's a really good one. Okay, so this is what I was referring to when I talked about every newsletter. So for 4 single months, every household got this. So we introduced the pillars, what they were, because I figured if my PIOs couldn't even name them, then certainly we needed to go back to the drawing board with the residents and really go back to fundamentals. Because for me, this is an ongoing, never-ending campaign. There will never be a time when I will not want to share the Provo pillars because they're so fundamental and they will always work. And so I want them rolling off the tongue. And then each year I'm just showing new projects or new initiatives or new successes that fall under one of those 4 pillars. So we went out with the first one. We talked about the regional sports park. You can see here on every issue that we did this, we had a QR code that directed them to take a short Provo Pillars survey, which just said, how are we doing in all of those 4 areas that we've promised you we want to focus on? So we got a baseline. So now, next year, I want to do the same thing. End of the year, I want to take the last 4 months, I want to hit the pillars hard, I want to do the survey again, and I want to see how we've moved the needle. So if we don't ask, we don't know. And if we don't continue to tell, I guarantee it won't internalize with them. So we're asking for feedback. Then let me show you the, oh goodness, I am jumping all over the place. Okay, so under our welcoming pillar, we just opened up a great park. This is done with a real quick video. They are hitting like nothing else on social media. So when you're thinking of how do we tell our story, you know, yes, you could just do a post that said we opened the park and here's a picture, but this is how we chose in part to tell the story with a reel. So just short little snippet, that is an example of how we have made our community more welcoming. That is a fulfilling of a promise to our citizens. And that again, that's building trust. Remember how we started this. Every time I fulfill a piece of that promise, I'm gaining trust. That's why the communication happens continuously, and I'm showing them what I'm doing for them lately, right? They always want to know that. Okay, our next one. Safe and sound, and we talked, you know, code enforcement, sustainability, emergency preparedness. Here was our safe and sound, and we talked about our new EOC. So we just finished, oh, it's been about 1.5 years ago now, our new city building, and we have a state-of-the-art EOC, and we had a far cry from that before. We had to go out to the citizens, they approved a bond, they trusted us, and I take every opportunity I can to tell them their trust was not misplaced, that they are now absolutely a more safe and sound community. And so again, that's a message I don't take lightly. And so we have, here we talked about our EOC. When we had our neighborhood meeting that I just mentioned, we had both of our chiefs get up under the safe and sound pillar, and our police chief talked about his use of Flock, the Flock system. I don't know if you guys are using that, but it is a game changer. So Flock is, and if I say it wrong, let me know, it reads license plates, doesn't keep any of the, you know, it's not a Big Brother thing. That's the concern. What it does do has been phenomenal about solving crime. 1 year ago, we had a hit and run, still has not been solved. About a month ago, we had a hit and run in a crosswalk on Center Street. It was solved within 4 hours. That is an absolutely amazing story to tell about how safe and sound our city is. And so, you know, when we talk about our pillar, safe and sound is important. The Flock system is an incredible story for me. We solved a national ring of thefts. We solved the hit and run. And so I want to tell that story. We did a media release so that we could get some press coverage on it. We are, you know, so you can see how we have a good story. How do we want to tell it now? And then you start to look at your channels and your deliverables of how you can tell that. Okay, another safe and sound. We had had an issue needing a pedestrian bridge out by our railroad, and it had been a long go. We had gotten the funding for 3 various projects. By the time ours came around, the funding was gone. Mayor Kafusi had to go out for it again. So it's one of those that we have gotten a lot of complaints on in our city. So when we finished it, we're going to tell that story big. We had as you can see, a ribbon cutting. We had all of our partners there. We had swag given away by UTA. And then you'll note, if you can see, we have this vinyl, oh goodness, if I would stop touching things. We have this vinyl sign right here that reminds them, this is proving that Provo is more safe and sound today. You have to tell them what you want them to know. Don't just assume they're going to know. Okay, now let's talk about tone just a little bit, especially as it relates to public safety. You know, when you're telling your message, you will have some chiefs that really want and need for that message to stay highly professional. And they don't want to go down the comedy route. They don't want to be lighthearted. That is how my police chief is. He has no desire to kind of wiggle around. He has a certain standard. So we're careful with how we craft and deliver his messages. Our firefighter, less so. I know Kaysville Fire has a lot of fun with comedy. Here's what I would say with humor. Humor is almost never worth it for me, because unless I am so certain that somebody is not going to take it the wrong way, it's not worth it for me. Now, lighthearted is okay. This one is a little on the funny side. That's why I wanted to talk tone. But when you're coming together as a group and you're looking at how you're communicating, tone and voice is so much a part of that, because it's the culture of your department. So decide who you are as a department, how you want to communicate, and then all of your, your posts after that will fit within what is comfortable for your culture. So this was fireworks. They moved the day up. Well, no, the problem was, let's see, Freedom Festival, so Stadium of Fire was the day before, so it was July 1st. So we knew they were going to hear fireworks on July 1st. We did not want them to think that that was the start of the day. It was one day later. So this is a PSA for that.
Yo, I'm Captain Brian Tanner. Just what the heck do you think you're doing? It's fireworks season. Fireworks season doesn't start till Sunday, July 2nd. Hate to rain on your parade, bro.
There it is.
Looks like I will have to rain on your parade. Remember, fireworks season doesn't start till Sunday, July 2nd.
That was really well received. It's short, it was to the point. We don't do those a lot, but sometimes we do, and this one actually generated a media story as well. So you find as you tell the story, we got media coverage, and we didn't have to do anything for it, which also brings up the opportunity for you. I always tell Provo that we can be the model city for whatever the timely news story is. So they're always going to do stories about, snow plows. They're always going to do stories about spring cleanup. The news media are going to, in fact, I had a news media person call me yesterday, and they were all running around trying to find snow stories. That was what they had been given by their producers. Go find snow stories. So when you're looking to get, free coverage for how you're winning in Weber, use those opportunities and become that model city. You can have them come look at what you're doing in, snow removal and things like that. So it's just a matter of being ahead of it, knowing you're going to tell a story, knowing that you, in this case, want the media to be part of that telling in addition to a video or whatever it else might be. Whatever it is, you craft how you want to package that story and sell it out there. Any questions as we're going through this? You guys are so quiet. This is not going to be any fun if you just listen to me for another 2 hours. Are you kidding me? Hold on, we're taking time. Oh, jeez. No, it doesn't want to go, Jessica. There we go. Okay. Let's go on to economically vibrant. We've done a lot with our economically vibrant pillar. You can kind of see what those various areas are. Oh, goodness. Okay. So the newsletter that we did on economically vibrant, you can see we talked about the various accolades and rankings. Again, you have them. Are you sharing them? I guarantee Weber's winning accolades and rankings. We need to tell our citizens how we are perceived nationally. Outside in, how are we looking? I think it's really when you're trying to bring your group together and you're thinking of content and sharing, one of the content buckets, I would call it, that we use is this by the numbers graphic. And we do one frequently, and we will assign them out. So police, you're over putting together a by the numbers graphic, and you can just choose whatever 5 or 6 numbers tell an interesting story about your department. You know, the ice skating rink, give me, 5 or 6, how many programs, how many users. It's a nice way to put data out there and tell a really quick story. So again, it's just a short data story. They're always colorful, they're always fun, they're always ahas. Sometimes it's miles of pipe in a road, or think how much concrete. Whatever it is, it's just another fun way to tell a story that is thinking outside of the box. Okay, so again, QR code, because we're always asking for the feedback. Oops. Okay, then another really quite big element that we did that was a storytelling element under the Provo, or under the economically vibrant. We call it the Provo Advantage campaign. So we had our economic development director come to us and say, how do we get the word out? We had Point of the Mountain developing is just going gangbusters right now. We just heard about the vineyard development that's happening. It's really huge. All of a sudden, Provo's thinking, we need economic development eyes looking on our city. How can we help them not forget us in the shuffle of new exciting projects? So 2 years ago, we just completed our second year. We started the Provo Advantage campaign under our Provo pillar of economically vibrant. We decided to create a list of all of the economic development influencers across the state. So your realtors, your brokers, anybody that's in that world, and we are going to create an e-blast. Every month we put together an e-blast. It went to all of these influencers, and it had tons of interesting materials that they could share. So we had a video, you'll see here, I've outlined some. We had influencers, so we went out to Brandon Fugel and we got an interview with him, and we have this quote where he labeled, this was his quote, we use it all the time now, but it was him that gave us this moniker, that there is no other location with over 70 restaurants, multiple hotels, a world-class convention facility, and access to a global university. He called us the Central Business District of Utah County, and we have used that ever since. So as we chose to tell this story, what we chose to do was bring in influencers that we knew people would listen to. We created graphics such as this with quotes. We created videos of various projects. We generated media attention. You can see our Ryan Smith story right there. So yes, as a city, we could work and just do it quietly. But what we needed to do was get attention from those who are making the economic development decisions, and also within our city, so that they know how economically vibrant we remain. And then you'll see here, this again is the front and back of that one. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is an example. Every single month as the email went out, we had an introductory video with our mayor and our economic development director where we introduced the theme. So we developed 12 themes, 12 advantages that Provo had over every other place that a person could think of to locate. And that was the essence of it. And so this one I'll play for you here. We want our mayor to be seen as strong economically.
Hello, I'm Mayor Kafusi, and I'm with Keith Morey, my Economic Development Director, standing on the 6th floor of Freedom Commons, the first new Class A office building in downtown Provo in 12 years.
That's right. An economic synergy is created with Freedom Commons as part of our thriving downtown. It offers employees an unparalleled work experience with structured parking, a fitness center, several on-site restaurants, and all the energy of downtown Provo within walking distance. It's the perfect example of this month's Provo Advantage economic momentum.
Residents are always asking, what is happening in Provo, Mayor? And the answer is a lot. Economic momentum is everywhere in Provo. Planning for a regional sports park is underway and expected to bring nearly 80,000 visitors to Provo, generating more than $30 million annually. And with the 2 airline carriers establishing base operations, our brand new Provo Airport Terminal is already in need of expansion.
Speaking of expansion, we're going to see an influx of innovation with a recent announcement from Ryan Smith with Qualtrics. Ryan plans to build a complete innovation community where you can live and work in an environment tailored to growing startups into maturity. With 200 residential units and 300,000 square feet of office space nestled around the Provo River in North Provo, this will become fertile soil for innovation.
Our economic landscape continues to transform with the needs of our growing community. We look forward to the redevelopment of our old City Hall building and a new fire station, as well as a long-awaited and much-needed West Side grocery store.
Provo truly is the central business district of Utah County, with our growing economic momentum making us the ideal place to do business, make memories, or to call home.
So again, kind of getting back to that idea, flesh out your winning in Weber. Figure out what that looks like and then illustrate it. Because there are just so many ways that you can continue to tell that story. And then people start to really want, they feel a pride. And that's, again, what we're doing. But not only that, but showing them that we can be trusted with their taxpayer dollars. Okay, so this is another example. I hope I'm not boring you with these. This is another example of gathering our influencers to help tell our story. So Lee Adamson happens to be a member of the Explore Utah Valley. So again, in this, where we're trying to talk about tourism, we asked him to share a message because, again, people, your citizenry will believe messaging that's coming from someone else before you. So how can you maximize those that love you to really help build up your brand? You see the pillars hit over and over again before and after.
So my name is Lee Adamson. I am the Executive Director of Explore Utah Valley. Our main goal is to improve the area economy of Utah County through tourism. Provo has so many new venues and so many exciting things happening. It's a great time for us in tourism to be able to promote Provo because there's just so many wonderful things. For example, the Regional Sports Park offers us such an opportunity to bring youth sports and tournaments into this community. It will be the second largest regional sports park in the United States.
Okay, I'm going to stop that for a minute because you guys are going to, I don't want you to hear about our projects 10 different times. I want you to get ideas for how to communicate. So, okay, hold on just a minute. Okay, and then this last one, again, thinking of different ways of illustrating. This one is just simply a flyover of the regional sports park. And it can just be that simple in terms of putting up something other than just words on your social media. You know, they love the drone footage. They love project updates. Those are some of the things that hit the best when we're pushing out information. They want to be in the know. They want to know what's going on. So even something like this flyover where you put graphics on showing here's the parking lot, you know, here's our pickleball fields, whatever it might be, doesn't take a lot of work, so much more powerful than just words. And that's kind of the difference is if we're going to communicate, how can we really maximize our efforts? Okay, lastly, forward-looking, when we're looking visionary. And this is the video that I was referring to with Dave Decker is our Public Works Director, and he has been working on this aquifer storage recovery. And I am going to show you this whole one because this is just this is a longer video, not too long, but it shows the challenging process of water, which is very difficult to explain to your citizens, but he's done a nice job, and again, shown how Provo, in this instance, is so forward-looking with water that, you know, Provo may never have to worry about it with the ASR program.
So we received $50 million from FEMA for this particular project. They were very impressed with our pilot study, with our consultants and the work that they've done, and our capability to do ASR in Provo cities. And the objective of the water treatment plant is to be able to take water out of the surface, primarily the Provo River, put it into a treatable form, put it into the aquifer so that we can store it for long-term purposes. And when we talk about long-term purposes, we're talking about 7, 10, maybe even 15 years of storage that we could put in the ground. So our hope is to have, about November, have an award completed and construction started late November, December, January timeframe this year. So residents should be able to see actual construction starting on the water treatment plant within the next few months.
See, very short, a very difficult subject that we're trying to get them excited about, and again, it fulfills that promise. Do you guys use much video as you're communicating? Yes, yes, a little bit. Again, never not telling your story. We all get our various rankings that we either are trying to get or not, and so we try, this is again that by the numbers graphic where we just showed them at the end of 2023 what the highest rankings were that we got in there. And then this is the QR code that we have included on everything else. So if you wanted to scan this and want to see, you're more than welcome to lift your phone up and it will scan, and you can just see what the Provo Pillars survey looks like. And it's just very short, but we're going to then show in a month or two what we received in terms of response from them, and then be responsive, do better where we need to do better. Okay, let's get out your papers. You guys are going to have to be a little more vocal. I was wondering if you guys wanted to do a little bit of work on branding this idea of winning in Weber. What do you think? You guys in for it? Okay, so everybody kind of go to your brand brainstorm. So let's go back to this winning in Weber idea, because that's kind of the tagline. And then I want you each to just, maybe we take just kind of 5 or 10 minutes, and I want you to think through, if nothing else, let's go down to like the strengths and the weaknesses and the goals. But even the mission and the vision, what are just a few words that you can think of that capture that tagline, winning in Weber? So take just a few minutes, and then we'll just shout out some things as you start to kind of think through what this brand looks like. While you're doing that, if you also look down below where it talks about the types of organizations, this kind of gets back to the tone and voice that I was talking about. So I also think it's nice to look down at the type of organization that you are. So look down at those two and think through what type of organization you are, because that helps with the branding as well. Okay, I'm not going to make you go silent too long. Who's got anything that they've put down for any category, whether it's a strength, weakness, mission, vision? Tell me what you thought. Commissioner?
Sorry, keep going first.
No, please.
Avoid the crickets. One of the great things I thought Laney Weaver was the proactive work that was done, especially by the roads department and community services department leading up to a record snowfall last year, where all of our rivers and waterways that fed into the Weaver River. The Weaver River was before more than 25% capacity than it did several years ago, with that water getting out through the Great Salt Lake, which also helped that project, right? So that was absolutely huge. We didn't have embankment failure because of the work that was done in advance, and so that was a huge disaster that was avoided because of the work that was done in planning and preparation in advance.
Yep. And do you remember prior to that, I mean, the news could talk of nothing but the fact that, you know, we had flooded in 83, I think it was, in Salt Lake. And I mean, we were getting calls. The pressure was high because the media was making us feel like we were all on the precipice of flooding. So after you had that success story, how did you share it?
I don't remember. I don't remember that part. We would share a little bit in public meetings, but that was a lot of things that changed. Our process by which we communicate, that whole thing has changed now. Jessica's so there's a little more to that story how we did do that, but we've got great faith in Jessica.
Yeah. See, and that's a great example, Commissioner, because that was a win. And so what can we take from that? That is an instance where you kept your citizens safe and sound. And so do we show a video of those, you know, men and women out there working all hours? Do we talk about, because we did this too, we did a media release where we talked about the pre-planning, because like you said, you're not just ready when it's going to happen. Months before, that planning has to take place. So when that happens again, tell that story widely. You know, you could go out and get an interview with, you know, a couple of the workers that were actually making sure that bank didn't overflow, you know, getting that FaceTime and show, you know, how many hours, again, by the numbers, how many hours did they spend in there? We did how many, you know, how much salt was used? How can we how can we show them what was averted? You know, and that's what we were trying to do, is due to our visionary looking, and yours as well, we averted a crisis. But let's make sure we tell them about that. And that's when I get back to government workers. You're just good at your jobs. You don't feel a need to be patted on the back, but we have to tell our stories, because we have to gain trust in government that is constantly being taken away from us. And the only way we can do that is by communicating. So it serves us and it serves them. Then they again trust us. They want to be part of this community. They don't worry the next time we have you know, a season like that. Okay, so what else? Thank you, Commissioner. What other words? Go ahead.
I'm sitting next to the assessor and Brooke and thinking, how do you message something that's so unsexy? I'm sorry. They decide what my home's value is. You know what I mean? And like, something that people don't really care about, except once a year when they get their property tax notice. But their work is all year round.
Yeah.
And so we have to find a way, I'm looking to you, how do you message, like, there are great things happening in these departments that are sort of tucked away.
Yep. Well, so a good example, we did like our short and long-term planning offices. Nobody knows what they do. And so I don't have an example of this, but I'll have to send it to you. But we had to sit down with them and just said, tell us what the difference is between the short-term and long-range planning. And we just a simple graphic that illustrated these are the basic functions of this one, these are the basic functions of this one. And it was just simply a graphic that we sent out just as kind of a Gov 101. But this one, your assessor is is a huge one because everybody wants to know why they're going to be paying what they're paying, and it's very confusing, right? So this is one where that's that very complex issue, and how might we do that? We do a lot of things with, maybe it's a short little video where you're showing some graphics. I think a video explaining that concept would be, or a graphic would be highly beneficial because nobody understands the kind of shift of how it goes, but I think it's absolutely important. And they will not always have things to say, but this one thing is hugely important. And so how do we take that very valuable message and create a little short, for instance, that explains what's happening around that time? We have our legal, I mentioned we have a legal department also has a PIO, so she also comes in the meeting. And she keeps us out of trouble, too. We ask her lots of questions, things about social media. She just finished looking through our social media policy, which will be another thing that you'll want to get in place if you don't have one, is a social media policy that helps guide. In fact, I have for you, too. Just one second. We'll go through this. I have for you, too, as we get to social media. I'm going to have some best practices here, so I'll start it here. Okay, so that would be my suggestion is, and as you're thinking, every department think, what are those core messages? For yours, it's this core message, and there may not be another one, but for others, there are core messages that you want to instill in citizens about your organization. What are those? And then as a Weber, what are those? So we had Sharon just gave hers. What other words did you come up with as we were thinking through the branding of Weber? Go ahead, thank you.
I kind of thought that Weber went through community collaboration.
Yes.
And that we were overcome obstacles through collaboration with the community, but that we would need to create functional community involvement channels to educate, inform, and collaborate. I think a lot of us can miss the actual communication channel that is going to give us the best feedback and most constructive feedback.
Yes, and we'll talk channels in here, but that is so important. I mean, and that gets back to the strategy. We can't just communicate. It's not like a shotgun. We really need to think, who is our audience? What do we want them to do? And exactly to your point, where is the channel that is best, is best suited for that? And then getting back to this assessor, what is the deliverable that's going to be the most meaningful? If I just do words that start with the assessor's office, to Sharon's point, to the commissioner's point, they're going to immediately shut down just because it's not exciting. It's not a new park. But if we have a colorful graphic with a headline that says, the more you know, or something that is powerful, we at least get their eyes on it for a few seconds. So how you package matters, how you word matters. So what you're having come around, we'll go more with it later. I want to keep on this. Are there some other comments that you had on the brainstorm as you're thinking of winning? Oh, thank you.
How about our road department and our engineering department also? The whole community and even people outside our community utilize our roads and everything, but I was thinking bringing like further down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But this last year we redid the North Auburn Divide, and our road director does really well. I mean, he keeps these little key things that are like our interest, like he keeps track of how much asphalt they use,
Yes.
how many miles of road they've done.
I love it.
Salt they've used. He does all that. That's pretty easy to capitalize off of.
I love it.
But also probably to add that is also, that's not only, that's just what they do, but we also, engineering we put out a lot of projects and stuff that local businesses do and everything we can highlight also along with that.
Yep.
Complement the commonality and the workforce of community involvement and businesses and stuff involved in that. But
Yep.
many people don't realize how much work goes into that type of stuff, and particularly in the last probably 5 to 8 years of what's accomplished. I mean, every year they've increased their numbers of miles done.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't tell that story often enough.
Yeah, you absolutely don't tell that story often enough. I guarantee it. Some of the most popular information that we put out is projects, either, construction projects, road projects. You cannot tell them enough about what is going on with those. And I love your by the numbers. Absolutely start gathering those. And to your point, I loved the, what was the down the road? Further down the road. Love it. Further down the road, maybe we're going to talk about campaigns, but like our Provo Advantage campaign, wouldn't it be great to do a further down the road campaign? And what do we do with that? How are we going to communicate that? We've got great ideas for a by the numbers graphic. We could do a QR code that sends them on the website, and you could have a listing of all of your projects, you know, with a little picture, your little basic information. We did a projects video. I didn't include it in here. We did a projects video that was just a shorty that kind of went through. It was the hottest, highest viewed. They couldn't get enough of it. We didn't have to do a lot of work. So yeah, I think you have a great campaign there, and just figuring out, you know, is it a year-long campaign? The other element you mentioned that I really loved is people don't understand the concept of maintenance versus having to do a complete tear out. You know, I don't remember the numbers anymore, but it was always fascinating to me that it would be like 10 times if we didn't do proper, I know you know it, so correct me, what is it? If we don't do maintenance, then we end up spending 10 times more or something like that. But there is a concept there that is absolutely true, that maintenance of roads matters. And so when they are seeing you out there slurrying, let's tell them why. Let's tell them why we are saving them money in the long run, why we do what we do. Because as you point out, they don't know. Yep. Yep. That would be a great graphic. That would be a great graphic that shows this is, and we are forward looking. We make sure we know that we're keeping all of these roads in such a way that we're not going to have a complete tear out. You know, then we haven't done our job, or at least not sooner than we need to. That's great. Good ideas.
Question.
Yes.
So Commissioner Harvey brought up what we were doing during the flooding. We had done all of this preemptive work.
Good.
But we had Channel 4 and ASL. Everybody was here trying to talk to our engineers and our road people about what was going on, but they didn't want to talk about the preemptive work that we had done. They wanted to talk about, oh, we're going to, like you said, we're going to flood and there's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
How can we shift that narrative and help the media
Yep.
focus more on what we want them to focus on?
So here's what I'm going to do. I love this. Thank you for talking. This is so much more fun for me. We're going to go right here to the press. I'm going to jump around because I want to answer Okay, I love press questions. I love working with the press. I think that, just as I have said here, they are a credible storytelling partner, but we have to learn how to manage them, and it's super important. But so the first thing I say is develop relationships with your reporters. And when I'm looking, I'm really looking here primarily. If you're going to organize your communications like we discussed, where you kind of have your communications director, Jessica is going to want to have good, strong relationships with them. Now, circling back to your specific question, and I pulled this up here, these are some of, as I was thinking through putting this presentation, sort of my best practices, but I'm going to answer yours first. So when they are coming to you, what I will tell you is you don't have to give them anything you don't want to give them. We are always in charge of the message, and there are techniques to do that. So in this instance, one of your strong messages was absolutely the preparatory work that you had done. But for the preparatory work, you know, the 3 months of preparatory work that we did within our department, we would have experienced da-da-da-da. So what you do is you prepare your talking points in advance, and you know the number one message we want to get out is that we killed it on this. Our team killed it. And that's your top message. So when she throws out a question that is directing you right to the flooding, you say, but for our 4 months of strong planning, we might have experienced this, but let me tell you about the work that was done. You give her the answer you want. And if there's something that she, you know, there are ways of transitioning. I don't like saying no comment, because inevitably, particularly if it's a conflict situation, they like to say that you said no comment, which feels like you're hiding something. You can always say a message. You just have to tailor it to what you want to say. And that's why talking points in preparation becomes so important. It's a great opportunity unless you're not prepared. And then all of a sudden you're looking like you don't want to be on camera. We want you to be excited that this person is giving you a chance to amplify your story. Because what the news media gives us that we don't have with our channels is credibility. Now we can all discuss whether or not we think they're credible in actuality, but they have credibility in the public eye. They are seen as unbiased. And so when we come prepared with a message, then we are amplified in such a way that we can't get on our own channels because they are our channels. So messaging becomes really, really important. So that's how I would have changed that. I would have made sure that message was the first one out of my mouth, regardless of what she asked me. I would have said it.
So to that point, though, unfortunately for me, I got the opportunity to do some of those interviews.
All right, share. We're here to help. Share it.
It got to the point, somehow my personal cell phone was leaked to KSL. I would get daily calls from the news media desk. We purposely, I purposely put answering. Because they were taking events and instances and sensationalizing it, and it could be damage to somebody's personal property. There was a home that was hit by a mudslide, and they're spinning it and sensationalizing it into this huge event. And these poor people are just trying to get through this issue, right?
Yep.
And so it's hard to control that. And the other thing too is they would take literal word-for-word quotes from me and put them in a different context than I had used it, which lost the meaning of the information I would give them.
Yep, I have something to say about that. I was thinking about that as I was putting this together. So, a couple of thoughts with what you brought up. They were in the position of badgering you at some point, it feels to me. I always try and be responsive. I always try and give an interview. I want my voice heard if there's a story about me, so I always want to be involved. Continual badgering is a different thing. And so I do think, again, you can, especially if you've given an interview to an outlet and they're calling you every day, listen, I am working on the flooding, so no, I'm not going to give you an interview every day. And I think that's perfectly acceptable. But getting back to your point of things being taken out of context, particularly when we suspect it could be controversial, I think it is a great idea to have somebody with you recording that interview. And even if you take snippets of that interview in its entirety and put it on your one of your channels, so that if you have a negative story or a story that framed you inappropriately, what you can do then is take that and put it on your social media and say, please see the interview in full context. You protect yourself. The other thing too is by recording it, you can also listen back and determine, I love this talking point, I didn't love this one, helps you for the others. But it's very good at protecting you if you have a reporter that plucks something and puts it completely out of context, and now you don't have any way of showing that that was not the way you meant it or was intended. So I would always kind of do that. And then you just have video that's good to use. You can slice it and dice it and use it on all of your channels in various ways.
We didn't have Jessica last year, so...
You guys are going to kill it this next year, then it's going to be good. Yeah, yes, knock on wood, I agree. Yeah.
I love this topic, obviously. I'm with the Sheriff's Office, so obviously in the Sheriff's Office we have a lot of experience with that twisting of the narrative.
Yep.
And it's something that I did a few years ago that was really helpful to me in law enforcement and kind of that PIO role, was that to remember that the media is a tool to get my message out.
Exactly.
To the public. And the individuals that I'm trying to reach is the community that I serve. I'm not trying to reach the media. And it just empowered me, that thought process.
Yep.
Empowered me to say, it's okay to say no to the media. And to your point, if you're going to say yes, make sure that when you go on camera, you have a message that you want to deliver. They're a tool. And it's okay to say no to the media. You still need to get your message out to your audience.
Yep.
You still need to get your message out. And I can tell experience
Yeah. It will always be seen as guilt, no matter what, yeah.
What we've seen is you're more proactive. The media will stop that badgering. They'll start pulling stuff from you. They'll stop calling you and pulling the content because ultimately they want the content.
Yep.
So if you're delivering that message to the public, they'll pull what you're providing out there through other
Yep.
avenues and then use that, and you'll see that those calls go down. But for me, like the aha moment was that they're a tool, and to your point, they can be a great tool if you
Yep.
go prepared.
Exactly.
But if you don't, and I've made plenty of mistakes. I've shown up after officer-involved critical incidents, kind of with the ideas I'm just going to respond to questions and not prepare
Yep.
with the message. But knowing that you can say no, but you still need to deliver your message to your audience, to the community, like that was a game changer.
Yep.
To realize that I can say no, and we still need to craft the message and get it out there.
I love it. Perfectly articulated. Yeah, absolutely. You should never go into an interview without about 3 or 4 talking points in your head. And so you know where you want that interview to go. And then depending on the questions that are asked, some of them may very well mimic your talking points. Some of them you may not want to touch with a 10-foot pole. And that's when you just do a little transition and go right into what you're comfortable with. I always say you don't have to give that reporter anything you don't want to. The minute they have a sound bite, they can use it. So if you don't want that sound bite out there, then you don't say it. You say the sound bite you want out there, and they can choose whether or not they want to use it. But yeah, but that requires, again, preparation on your front. So what I put up here was just a media release. I've had our local reporter come in and talk to the PIOs and try and get them just so excited about storytelling. She will say there's no shortage. She's a community reporter, so she's our Daily Herald. You guys have your Standard Examiner, right? So you likely have kind of a local reporter here. Janelle is my best friend. I mean, we talk every single day, or 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. About all of the stories, and she truly feels like a partner to me. What I want to talk about with media, though, while she feels like a storytelling partner to me, I respect our roles. So there are things I would never ask her for because I respect her role as a reporter. I never ask to see her story after it's written. I mean, that's the whole reason they maintain credibility. I am prepared when I give my talking points. I always put together a really fleshed out media release, which is why I put this up here. The nature of media right now is such that they are completely understaffed. They need stories, they need content, they don't have time to learn all of the details. So getting back to, I'm sorry, sir, what was your name? Aaron. Getting back to his point, it's a huge opportunity because they need content, and what we can do is become a resource that gives them practically the whole story put together. I'll write a media release like this, and inevitably, certainly in my local paper, it is almost word for word. And other sources too that just don't have the time. So talk about, all of a sudden I get the credibility of the media outlet, but I've written the whole story. So it's the best of both worlds. So not using PR is a big mistake. There are absolutely stories that are not being told in the media that would work, that they would be interested in, that would, again, amplify from a credible third-party source how much you are winning in Weber. So don't forget your PR because it's valuable. You can get those stories on the TV stations. Those are great. When I get Provo up there as an example city on a, well, in fact, when I told you they were calling around looking for snow stories. So I called Dave Decker, the Public Works Director, and said, hey, do you got any trucks loading up salt? And he said, well, I can have one loading up salt. So we got back to the report. This is your story. Got back to the reporter. He came at 3 and we mimicked loading up salt. Great. I want them to know they can come to Provo, and I'll go out of my way a little bit because what I want when somebody sees the story on the news that night, sure, they can see Vineyard, but I would much prefer that they see Provo out on the roads. That's what I'm talking about by being the example city. We know these reporters are going to want these stories of the services that we do. So why would we not reach out to them with great media releases that talk about our good work and have you as the expert talking about, you know, giving a quote about all of the work you've put in. And inevitably, if it's written well enough and they need a seasonal story, you're in. And that's just earned media. It's really powerful. So I'm sure you've read all of these as we've talked, but fundamentally, if you're going to go to the media, it needs to be something substantive. Don't go with fluff. That's insulting. But you have plenty of stuff that is good, worthy, and I guarantee you're not sending nearly enough as potential pitches to your media outlets, whether they're your TV stations, whether they're your daily papers, whether, you know, whatever it is, that's an opportunity for you that gives you credibility we can't get otherwise. I always start with my headline and my subhead because it forces me to think of what that story is as if it's an elevator pitch. So as you're thinking through your day and you're thinking what is powerful, you can see on this one, I have faster response times expected with Provo's new automated dispatch system. And then the automated system goes live at the end of September. And then you'll see in here that I always do, when I majored in PR at BYU, they always used to tell us 3 sources. When I put together a fully fleshed media release to go out as a pitch, it is always this comprehensive. I always have at least 3 or 4 quotes, maybe from 2 different people. So what I'm doing is doing the work for them. Because I know if I do most of the work for them with the exact story that I want to tell, I'm going to avoid the problem that you had, at least on paper, that they're putting something out there that I didn't say. I said it just as I want to be, you know, just as I want it said, and often they'll run it just that way. So really powerful way to get some stories. So here's some media best practices, and those of you who have dealt with the media, you police PIOs, I'd love you to throw in any others that you think about. First and foremost, we always tell the truth. There is never a time when we do not tell the truth. If we do not want to answer, we've talked about some of the other ways we can, you know, get around that. But absolutely, when we talk about our fundamental reason for communicating is gaining trust, any loosey-goosey with the truth is never okay, and you'll never be able to recover. Be prepared, like we talked about. Second and most important, you can question the reporter. If I had a reporter call me, we're knee-deep in homeless, providing a winter response for our homeless population. And it's becoming controversial because our social service agencies had put out information about a warming center, but we had not gone through the logistics of building code and fire code. And if you're having an alternate use for, these are in churches, by the way, if you're having an alternate use, well, obviously you have to abide by those things. So we hit a roadblock. So what happened in the media is these wonderful emotional stories had gone out about the churches opening warming stations, and then stories started coming out that would happen, but for the fact that Provo City is holding up, and so people are going to be in the cold because we won't let people come in the church. You all know the practicalities of that and why we can't do that, because there's liability. The problem is the perception in the media was such that we now have a brand problem. We have a reputation problem, unfairly, I might add. So, boy, we've been dealing with it for a month, trying to get the fire code figured out, and I get a call, one of our social service agencies put out a response on one of the Facebook forums that these wonderful warming stations are no longer going to happen because Provo won't let it get by the fire code, which is not true. So the reporter calls up, she wants a story. I'm frustrated because they've done this about 3 times where they've done news media stories when we're not ready to go out. So we're feeling pressure. So what I did, and this is what I want to share with you, I called the reporter. And I said, tell me what you want to know. And that is okay to do. You don't need to agree to an interview and then just be blasted by whatever they say. So she said, I saw this comment on Provo Forward that these warming stations aren't happening, and I said, that's not true. We're going to be going through the building code. We're just about there. And she said, I don't want Provo to be the bad guys. And I said, well, we don't either, because we're just as excited about these as they are. So my point is, you can call and say, tell me what story you're looking at. What angle are you looking at? Help you prepare. And then you develop you become the expert in this instance. You create your talking points to the point that, I'm so bad with names, the gentleman made. You know who you're talking to. You know that you are trying to get your message out to the citizens, and that's how you crafted your message. And then, of course, you anticipate tough questions. They do come. and you do your best to dance around them. But again, if you feel confident in your talking points, you will be just fine. Any other thoughts on, oh yeah, please.
I remember once, probably about 15 years ago, where a deadly horse disease started. It was at the Golden Spike Event Center called EHB1. And I was getting calls from national media everywhere. And I started using the phrase, well, if you'll talk, I'm sure you're prepared. I said that to the reporter. I'm sure you're prepared and already know that the state brand inspector, and let's say his name, said that these diseases are, while they're spread at a facility like ours, the outbreak starts at their home. So I pivot.
Perfect.
So starts at their home. So someone has brought this in from their home, which spread here. Because they broke out through the whole community and it was devastating. But only Fox News National, CBS, NBC, ABC, all of them did not ever implicate, they said a Utah disease, not the Golden Spike Event Center.
Oh, good.
Fox said Golden Spike Event Center. Because I didn't want us to be, and this was amongst the National Cutting Horse Association, second highest first generating horse industry of all. So it was incredibly devastating for a lot of big money horses.
Yes.
So that was a big deal. I'm sure, I said that to the reporter, every reporter, I know you've done your homework, so you already know this from this guy.
That's a nice, respectful way to do that. I really like that. You know, the chances are they may not have known that, probably didn't know that, but I love how you did that in such a way that it was just really respectful. And again, I love this point. We have the opportunity to, in this case, correct misinformation or make sure that our brand isn't inappropriately marred. And so that's huge. And so every time he's in that interview, he's thinking of that one core message. That's a strong interview. You know, and even if you follow up with a statement, or I'll call up after and make sure they don't have any questions about any particulars. I want that story as accurate as it can be, and that's a great technique, just pivoting right into where you want them to focus. And on my call with the gal yesterday, I reiterated more than once that the fire code is a moot issue. We have worked through it. And then I tried to eliminate the story, which we did get the story to wait, and then we're going to do an event on Thursday, next Thursday, in front of the church with all of our Utah County Task Force, and we're going to tell our story. That's the difference, right? All of a sudden, I'm not at the mercy of this reporter. I am going to tell a really touching story where we open the doors for the first time at that church, and it's about Provo and all of our partners together. So that's a way where storytelling takes what has been frustrating to us of bad press for a month, and we're going to knock it out of the park with unity. And that's when you communicate with color. That's a good way to do it. Okay, so lights, camera, action. If those PIOs that know it, you're always going to look at the camera. Government jargon, it's so hard to get it out of our speak, but no, because nobody that we're wanting to talk to is going to understand it. So as you're preparing, and say it out loud. When I do my talking points and I'm driving to an interview, I am speaking them out loud because I want them to roll off. So, again, this is just something, doesn't take a lot of time, but makes a huge difference once the microphone gets right in front of you. On off the record, my police PIOs, what do you think about that? There you go. That's exactly what I see. There is no such thing as off the record. Yeah, just don't even go there. It's just too, truthfully, most reporters, I would fundamentally trust that they wouldn't. I would still never take the chance. I just wouldn't. I may give them context off the record, but I'm not going to do anything that were it to go public, I would be devastated. And I think that's just a smart rule. And we've talked about avoid no contact, and we've talked about the idea of recording those interviews, not only for your resources, but so you can cover yourself if it goes badly. Okay, any other questions on reporters in particular or media coverage while we're right here? Chief.
Not quite, excuse me, a question, but law enforcement historically hasn't had very
always best.
With one incident that it kind of just went away.
Mhm.
Because we were proactive, because we put our story out first, we didn't get a whole lot of media attention from it, which is what our goal is.
Sometimes that's the best goal, is no coverage. That's exactly right.
So I think departments of the county as a whole kind of take that attitude. It's worked very well for us. We have a relationship with the media. But our PIOs, though, like if we have an incident, Lieutenant Ryan, Sergeant Maybe, all of our PIOs are putting that message out first. Putting it out on our platform, where the media can look it up. If they want an interview, they can interview.
Mhm.
It's been very beneficial. To
Yep.
make that connection, that friendship with the media, and use them rather than wait for them to come to us, which historically is what law enforcement has done.
Yeah, exactly right. And they appreciate it because now all of a sudden you're a resource. You're somebody they can count on. And if you've ever watched the media try and put a story together, I mean, you have to give them respect. It's like sausage being made. I mean, they are in their cars trying to grab B-roll and trying to write copy. Why could we not be a resource and give them information that makes their job easier and makes sure that our story goes out accurately the way we want? So it's just well done, yeah. And that will pay dividends for you always as you look to your media coverage. Very good. Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Let me just throw a comment in there. I think those of the sheriff's officer crowd, they might be tired of hearing this from you. Maybe someone else in the room can benefit from this. So when you talk in your bullet point up there about bringing talking points, one of the techniques that I was taught in the class that I went to create those talking points is you break it down to the 4 bases. It's kudos, so who can I thank? And then call to action, so what do I need from the public? And that can be a tangible call to action, like avoid this intersection or avoid the divide. You know, we just put out a message recently today about closing the divide, so that's a tangible one. There's also an intangible call to action, which is please be patient with us as we try to clear the divide, right? So there's that tangible and intangible call to action. And then we call it, the next one is a public safety statement, obviously because of law enforcement, but that's simply what are we doing? What are we doing? So that's your opportunity to explain what you and your teams are doing. And then the last one is a policy statement. What is the law, statute, or what does the policy say? And that's been a great way for me to just start to craft that message, right? I start there. I usually do it as a bullet point, and I find that if I start there, then I go into that interview or whatever it is, and then kind of I just have those talking points. So.
I love that. See now, and this is something where, were you in kind of your one Weber meeting, that is a great tip for all of you that are facing them. I mean, I wrote it down. That's a great communications tip. So that is true. The benefit of working together is you have great experience with the media, and Jessica's maybe more experienced with video, and you know, and together you become so powerful and better at the the communications. But I love that. I'm going to keep that little mnemonic. That's a good one. Where was this down like PIO down in St. George, or where was it?
It was actually at Quantico.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I'd love to know some more of the stuff you used or learned there, because that's a clever one. That's good. Yeah, please. Oh, you guys probably all want to take a break. Yeah, no, everybody go take a break. I can't imagine you guys don't want a break from me. Go take a break. I love it. I thought what we could start with, and I absolutely will have you out by noon, if not a little sooner, because you have all been very patient. It's a long time to listen to somebody. I really do hope that I've given you some good stuff. It's going on 11, so we have an hour or less, and so I would love for you, I have a few things left, but I would love for you to make this last hour be exactly what you want in terms of questions, anything that I've talked about that might be useful for you. So really make this helpful for you. You do have a campaign planner sheet as part of your group. I don't know that we'll spend much time going through that. I did think it was valuable though, and he's not here anymore, but when he was talking further down the road, you know, those kind of mini campaigns, this is a good sheet for you to just make sure you're doing that proper advanced thinking. I talked you through kind of what we did with the Provo Advantage. We do have this one right here I was going to show you. We actually got a request directly from our city council, and they wanted us to, in fact, they even allotted, I want to say, I think it was $10,000 for new sustainability programs, and they wanted us to tell our story about sustainability. And so we got all of our departments together that had a sustainability story to tell, or should have, and we started a year-long newsletter, online newsletter, that we send out to, again, kind of a targeted group of people. We certainly made sure our city council saw it, and then we would, again, chunk up these various content that we could use on social media. So the campaign itself was an online newsletter, sustainability. Our campaign name was Preserving Provo, and then we came up, much like we did with the Provo Advantage, we came up with themes. And our themes happened to correspond with our departments. So for instance, one month, in fact, this is the month, I believe, we gave it to Parks and Recreation. And this was their month to tell their sustainability story. And so you can see here what they've talked about as part of theirs. And it was quite effective. And more importantly, it was just, oops, let me go back this way. It was just a better way for us to tell that story that we had been requested to tell. So I don't think we'll go through that, but please use that as you're kind of starting to think through what you might want to do branding-wise with your campaigns. And then for this, as you can see, we've appealed to our pillars always. We do everything back to our pillars. And then here's another good example of the by the numbers. This one was the Parks and Rec, and so you can see what they came to. Number of annual visitors, the members, the participant hours. It really is a fun exercise. If you do nothing else, when you first meet together as your One Weber Communications team, I think all of you should come prepared with your 5 by the numbers, the first kind of story that you want to tell, whatever it is. And again, you can come up with by the numbers exhaustively, but I think it would be fun for you, and you could start coming up with what your brand graphic looks like. Ours always look and feel the same. They're kind of those boxes. We vary the colors depending on, the department or the pillar that it's representing. So everything is feeding up to the branding, which is another point I wanted to make. As you develop your branding messages, you also want to pay attention to your branding itself. Are your colors, have you identified your colors, your fonts, your sizes of fonts? All of that is, again, where it becomes very beneficial and imperative, I think, to have your central communications person in Jessica. So if you don't have a style guide, for instance, right now, a social media style guide, that will be one of those wonderful things that you as a team can develop together. Style guide, social media policy, messaging that you develop together. When you meet each week, you're finding out what the other departments are doing. That was one of the best benefits of this, is I now have 25 PIOs who didn't even get to interact ever, who now call each other when they need help. It is a really supportive, helpful team. And even if we just get together and we always do a round table, even if it's a quick meeting and we just do a round table, it is hugely helpful. And as I'm sitting there listening, I'm hearing what they're saying, and I'm, okay, let's do some social posts on that. Hey, let's throw that into the internal newsletter that we're sending to employees. You know what? Let's include that in the citywide e-blast. That should absolutely go in the mayor's blog. I wouldn't know any of that until I have everybody getting around the table and I can hear what's happening, and then I can prioritize. You know, some things are going to rise, like when we got this with the council, that's going to rise to a campaign level, and we need to put it on our editorial calendar and figure out our themes every month. But some things are just simply, we need to make sure that everybody knows about this. And so that's where the team comes in, is you're filling in the blanks of what we have to communicate. Because not everything's going to fit in our newsletter, for instance. We have limited real estate. What are the most important things? And that rises back up to, what are our goals? In your packet, you have goals and strategies. What are your goals? Our goals, some of our high goals, are we want to make sure they know that we have an exceptional standard. We want to make sure they know we focus on the Provo pillars every single day. So those are our top line messages. And so I want to make sure that as I'm day to day, I'm not losing sight of the upper messages, so that it's meaningful and so that it's moving the needle. Okay, so campaign planning exercise, and those are fun. Further down the road, I love coming up, like our Preserving Provo. I think the little snappy campaigns are a lot of fun. You don't tire of them. You can come up with a lot of information. And so each department, likely, maybe not the appraiser's office, can come up with some ideas that would be a really fun campaign. And I think another preparatory tool for you as you put your team together, what are your department's FAQs? What are your frequently asked questions? You know what you're getting criticized for. You know what you're getting asked about. What are those things? Those should immediately translate to communications messages in some way, shape, form, or another. All of that creativity. So what are the core messages you know you need to communicate, and what can we do creatively to communicate those? That's where the fun comes in. But you have to know what the goals and the strategies and your key messages are first. So a little hard work first, but then the fun comes in. And then you start to bring in, I know Jessica had a lot of video experience. You know, I don't know if you have any other resources. How we work our PIO team on our organization chart. We have all of our department PIOs, and then I bring in as resources my media team. And I've characterized them as that. In fact, when I started to put this concept together in Sandy, which was never as successful, but we started a concept of it, I used my media team and myself, and I likened us to a PR agency. And I said, we are your internal PR agency. And so we would meet with them as that. And I would sit down and say, in fact, one of the first campaigns we did was with the recreation center, and it was an old recreation center in Sandy, had kind of the stable membership, but they wanted to grow their membership. So we sat down with them and we came up with a campaign with a clever slogan. We came up with graphics. We had displays that we put in their building with posters. It was a fun campaign, and sure enough, their membership that had not increased and had remained stable took a dramatic enough hit to show that the communications worked. And so, and it was interesting because as you come in both cities that I came in such a way that they did not have their communications organized. And what I quickly found was there were definitely some departments that had a hard time letting go of those things that they had personally been doing. In this instance, our Parks and Rec department had a brochure that they put out every year. They just did it in-house, and it looked like they did it in-house. It was, a lot of kind of little cheesy graphics. It didn't have that professional feel that we wanted. So that was one, and I disliked. I wanted to elevate it. But I knew that I could not just go in and take something that they had been working on and was their baby for several years. So what we chose to do was have success with their campaign. I shared every communications success thoroughly that we had when I was first in Sandy around the director's table, because I wanted, in this case, the Parks and Director got a win, and I wanted all the other directors to hear about that win. And sure enough, what started happening was they did start to come to us because they understood that it was effective. And so as you come together, it's not going to be It's not going to be instantly unifying. It's not going to be instantly perfect, but it will slowly improve, and what you put out will slowly improve, and your citizens will start to notice. The beauty of your branding, if nothing else, your consistent branding, is because they have so many messages coming out there. When I have my consistent pillar branding, I know that they don't even have to read necessarily what they see. They just know there's another instance of a good Provo pillar success. So if I only got a second, because I've branded and because I've done it, this drumbeat continuously, I know that even if I only got them for a second, they know that we've done something else with Provo pillars. And so that's the strategy of it. So thinking of how you can come together. Yeah, go ahead.
Some of what you're talking about kind of crosses the line into marketing, obviously.
Yeah.
Things, not just PR.
Sure.
And you talked about your team. Do you have a full-time team? How many are on it? Do you have photographer, videographer, editors, graphics people?
Yep, good question. Good question. And it is varied in the various cities that I've been in. So in Harriman, small city, didn't have anybody. And so we did a lot of things out if we had something, or internal. And, the quality suffered. When I was in Sandy, we had, I was full-time. I had a full-time communications manager, handled a lot of and he was also my graphic designer. So he did graphic design full-time and did the social media. And we had, I was trying to think if we had a video. I think we did have a video guy at Sandy. We didn't do a lot of video, though, because we didn't have a full-fledged team. We did some, not a lot. Now, in Provo, I am the only full-time communications director. I have a part-time kind of consultant that just does the social media. She just posts for me. And then in terms of video, I've got a video manager. So I've got a video team, a strong video team. I've got a video manager. He's got about 3 part-times that just do the projects as we need them. So we do have a strong video component, which you can see as apparent in what we put out in terms of a lot of video content. But I will say the video content plays really well, particularly the shorter versions. So to your point, you need to have the resources, either somebody with the skill set to do it, or a team that can do that. But I think you have that in place. At least I remember some of Jessica's video skills. But I do think video is a place to explore and maybe just figure out, if you don't have the larger capabilities, you can still have, honestly, the same success on a smaller scale. It's just kind of like the reels are really easy to put together, and not something that you would even need a production team. You could do it with your iPhone,
I think the more we get into it, the more it's not till you get into it, you realize how much you're not doing. Right?
Yeah.
And the more you do, you realize how much you're doing.
Yeah. But that's exciting. It's overwhelming and exciting, right? It's just, could never communicate enough.
We have, one of our venues is a full-time social media person, content person, and then all the other venues have part-timers doing
Okay.
it. And then we just retooled, we had an overarching manager, we're retooling, and it's just going to be solid content capture, creation, person, video.
Awesome.
Graphics that can deploy out to all the channels.
See, and I love that you're going to now be really producing a ton of content, because when you guys decide whatever you're kind of overarching, safety is always number one. So as you prepare content and you're putting it out on your channels, what can we do to take that content and share it more widely on the Weber County channels? Because again, all we care about is eyeballs. We want the most people to see the good content that we get. And so again, the coordination of this, how can we really maximize that and do an underlying message of, safety, for us, safe and sound, but solid safety and communications. I would even tell the story. It's a great story that your police department is so focused on communications. I don't think I've ever heard of one that has devoted so many resources for it. And why? Because you want to communicate well. So that's a good story to tell. Anything else? Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's get into communications channels. As we pointed, she prefaced us that it does matter, the channel does matter. So let's start with police. What channels are you using to communicate? Let's start with social media. Where are you? Twitter, what else are you on? So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I like those 3. Those are the 3 that I use. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking you're right next to. Thank you.
We do mostly Facebook, Instagram, and some Snap.
And I think nobody, well, the state has shown us that none of us should, yeah. Okay. What else? Other departments, so okay, culture and Parks and Rec, police, you do the 3. What other departments do we have in here? What about over here? Anything? Oh, engineering. Okay, do you guys have your own socials? Okay, who has their own? You've got county social, police, culture, parks and recreation. That's it?
I think elections has one.
Okay, I actually love that. And I'll tell you why. So often what I encountered in primarily Provo is, again, going back to how they were acting as silos. It's not surprising then that when I come in, we have got Facebook page for development services, for instance, that maybe puts a notice out once every 2 months. Should that department have a page? It doesn't make any sense. Whatever effort they're putting on there for the 2 eyes that got to see it. But again, it goes back to they've had that page for a long time. So it was having that conversation of, here, our goal is to have things seen. And if you're only seeing 2 eyes, let's fold your content into the Provo City larger pages, and I can get eyeballs on what you, but it's walking them through. We're a team, so you don't have to have your own page. In fact, we want your great content, but let's put it in a place where it's actually going to be seen. And when you have that one Weber mindset, then of course we just want the best communications no matter how it gets out. So, but it takes time. You know, everything takes time, and what I will tell you, as I told Jessica, for the first time, I feel really good about where our team is. And you know, you talk about you develop content, you just need to develop more content. That is the way it is, but that's an exciting thing, even though it feels overwhelming as we sit down and just realize, oh, now we did a great job on this, but what about this? When you start to get that momentum going, it gets exciting. And so it'll be a fun time for you. Anything else there? Okay, so let's talk channels now that we kind of know. So the point is, I love that you are already not siloed. This is fantastic because we still have more social media sites than I would like in terms of feeling like we're getting the effective reach that I would want. Okay, we already talked press, and I do consider them a channel. That's why I want you not to forget that PR aspect, because again, it's just a unique channel that is different from everything else that we have at our fingertips. Okay, social media, we've kind of got into that. I passed you all out the social, this was just a list I got from a different resource about all kinds of things you can think about as you're going through your social media. And again, a lot of this would play in to your social media policy as well. Going back to the reason I think we don't need so many accounts. If you're not posting consistently, there's really no reason for you to post. I mean, the content matters, the consistency of the content matters. So in my departments where they're struggling, that's why we would want to pull them. We've talked about determining your tone of voice. That's very important online as well. You know, what are you trying to say? Another thing too I should mention in terms of content, we and our team just had our IT people bring us a demonstration of AI, in particularly ChatGPT, and how you can generate so much copy from that. Now there is some, careful considerations about what you're putting out there. What I will say, and I was reluctant, I consider myself a writer, and so it almost felt like cheating for me to use AI. And so I resisted until it was about 3 weeks ago. I was just buried. And we had our guy had given us the presentation, talked about how great it was, and I thought, I'm just buried, I'm going to do it. Okay, it was amazing. It was seriously, I almost felt like I was putting myself out of business, because it feels like if they can write that much better. My point being, and I love what my IT manager said, he said because I had made that point about getting, out of business, and he said the only people who will be put out of business from AI is those who don't know how to use it as a tool. And that is important. So we are trying to generate increased copy about all of the services that we do. What you can put in ChatGPT and what you can get output in seconds is amazing. So consider it as part of your toolbox. You know, we talked about some of the other tools. We provide all of our PIOs with Canva. Because and then in Canva, the beauty of Canva is that everybody has an account, it's very inexpensive, but the beauty of it is they can create, we have a style guide on Canva, so load it up, they know exactly what colors they can use for every pillar, they know the fonts that are allowed, so it's all right there. They can put together their social media graphic in a matter of seconds, and then our process is they then send that graphic to our brand manager, who is actually over our media team. He looks at it, a couple of minutes, he sends it back. But we require that because, again, we want that brand look and feel. Took a long time to get the PIOs to do that, and we still have some that are getting better, but the quality has improved, and that again is the power of the group. We have one branding style guide, and we have a brand manager it's our media guy, and we now make sure that everything goes out, but we are putting out more content, to your point, because we're using Canva, we're using GPT, we're using those things that help us maximize. So those tools are going to be important for your team. Creativity. Of course, we've talked about strategic storytelling. I talked about analyzing. We have Sprout Social, so we can see which posts are performing the best. But you can also do that just on your individual social media. So, you know, you can look at Facebook and run a report and see what's hitting. So what I want you to look at is, what is it? What quality? Is it videos? Is it the reel that's knocking you out of the park? Is it the text with a picture? You know, what is it? And what I loved about, here, let me go right here. When you're trying to think of what to say, let's go to the social media best practices. I thought this was a lot of fun. So let's say you're struggling on what to do for social media. So this is 10 introduction ideas to start a post. And if you think about any way you could do it, so you could use a date. So let's say you can go online and get a calendar of just fun events that you might want to celebrate. Each one of your departments has an industry week. You know, there's police week, there's EMT week. All of those are on our editorial calendar. So when those come up, we can do a fun post. And the editorial calendar, if you really get serious about it, will only get better, because you'll then know, okay, you'll celebrate all your departments when you're supposed to at the right time. There'll be other days that are just sort of national fun days that would just be fun, creative content. So it goes through here, exclaim something. So saying in this, you can just say, be safe, Weavers, just something quick. Use a fact, and this is going back in your past perhaps, where you can say, this is a fact that happened, and roll it into another post. An idiom, as you see, 1-word or 2-word sentences. Use a quote, according to the police chief, da-da-da-da-da. Relate to your community's history. Everybody loves nostalgia, so go back to your history, and maybe you're doing something that you can compare and contrast. One thing we're going to do at our upcoming State of the City to thank our citizens for trusting us with the bond is I'm going to have my chiefs do a compare and contrast, which our old building, which was 1972, and our brand new building, and so police can imagine the conditions. You know, the evidence room had gotten flooded out several times. We're going to show them that compared to the safety of the evidence room now. Again, telling that story and making sure that they get that we appreciate it and that it was a good return on investment. You can ask a question or a set of questions. You can describe the setting. Again, we're being creative with how we choose to put our post together. Be blunt if you need to. So that's just a few ideas. And I wanted to show you, I mentioned in terms when we're talking content and channels, Reels just really are, in terms of being seen, Reels really don't have a match right now. So let me show you, these are just really quick ones. This is our Provo Airport. This is part of our Provo Advantage campaign, but this was the leisure aspect of it. Very simple. So when you talk about, if you don't have a full-fledged video okay, there's a drone there. You guys please have drones, right? You guys are outfitted with drones. You have a city drone for communications. Drone footage also very fun. So you can see a lot of the numbers come in that we talked about that help show them the impacts of these various things. These are not hard to make. Quick messages that show them things are happening and they should be excited about this community. this one over here, or downtown Provo. This one was just this. It's very quick. And what we wanted to convey with this is there's a lot happening in downtown. So being that creative aspect, it's let's show as many fun shots as we can. So you're just thinking this is packed full of fun stuff. And then lastly, this was on one of our, again, Provo Advantage campaign. This was one, the theme was that we have very unique businesses in Provo that many of our citizens wouldn't know about, and so we tried to highlight. So we went out, and that is a, oh, what's that kind of car? I just forgot. Oh, here we go. We went out to Boeing and highlighted them. We highlighted this guitar manufacturer and then car maker. So you can see with these, do we have to do these? Are these, you know, these aren't project specific. We're not giving them an update about a road, but what we are doing is trying to community build. We're trying to share things with them that they had no idea about their community. And so these aren't things that government has to do. If we were communicating in black and white, we wouldn't do these things. But because we have a higher purpose, which is community building, we do these things. And so it's thinking through how can we do those things that just might be like an aha, that was nice to hear. Okay, go to the next one. Okay, do you guys do a newsletter? Mailed to homes or online? All online, okay. Have you guys ever done a survey on preferred communications methods in your county? Okay. So in almost every city I have been in, we've always still had a printed newsletter, and primarily because it's the one that goes directly to them in their mailbox. They don't have to opt in. But it's also the most expensive, like hugely expensive. When you get criticism on that newsletter. In fact, when I first did it, I had it with glossy paper and changed it to not glossy paper because glossy paper looks too expensive. Even if it wasn't a big difference, it's the perception of what you're spending. So because I know how expensive it is, I really try and make it impactful. So a lot of my effort for that printed expensive space is to push them online, to push them back to the website. And we are actually in the middle, we haven't done a new website for probably 12 years. It's woefully, in fact, don't even go to it, it's embarrassing, woefully inadequate, but it's going to be a wonderful project for our One Provo team to come together. And a perfect timing because we've spent 2 years really understanding messaging and our highline messages of Provo Pillars and Exceptional and One Provo. And so now when we come together, we're pushing out messaging that is on point and powerful, and we're doing it in the most economical ways where we can. So that you don't have one, I would say, what's your, how many do you send it out to? Yeah. Okay. So is that that's your most direct way of reaching them though? Yeah, okay. Okay, so I just pushed to some of these, like I said, we push to the online sources because they're timely, they're inexpensive. We have limited space in the newsletter. You know, I'm having my PIOs give me, when they get an assignment for an article, it's 200 words. And so, you know, if there's additional messages to that, you can push them back online. The leadership to who you choose to speak, you know, bringing together all of your directors and your chiefs and really almost creating a speakers bureau within your county and finding opportunities to share the expertise of, you know, what's in your county because they truly are experts at what they do. So I mentioned it earlier, but, you know, telling them that they are in fact going to be the spokespeople and preparing them with media training so that they feel comfortable so we can send them out there like we did where you were the unfortunate one. But again, we want you to be seen as, you know, the expert in whatever area you're out there. But we also want him to feel comfortable when he goes out there. And so as a group, making sure you're doing best practices on media so that everybody, and your PIOs and your police would actually be a really good resource for that in terms of sharing what they've learned through all the years, because nobody gets down in the trenches like the police when they have to do that. Okay, and then I kind of wanted to show how we use that limited space to make it impactful. So we try and tell a lot of visual pop messages. I mentioned the by the numbers. The QR code just gives them the opportunity to go directly to the newsletter. The project update that I was telling that gentleman about, that's kind of what we did with the QR code where we sent them there. And then we, in the newsletter, again, the physical newsletter that's going out, we told them about the sustainability campaign that I told you about. The PVU task force, that was a mayor, Big Six. One of her Big Six projects was the international airport. So I want to make sure they know we're not losing sight of that Big Six goal, and the purpose of the task force is that they try and get a legacy carrier. So again, it's trying to move the drumbeat forward on those things that we know matter. The West Side Grocery, one of our biggest criticisms, we've been promising one for 20 years. It's proved to be challenging, so we try and, as best we can, give them an update. This one actually doesn't fulfill the promise. It's not quite on the west side, but it's close enough that I want to show that we're thinking about it. And then here we've got our safe and sound pillar. I mentioned the crosswalks, the raised crosswalks that we put in for the first time ever in Provo, after getting, you know, considerable backlash about the safety of this pedestrian walkway. And so that's an important point to make. And then getting back to exceptional. Exceptional community is by no means limited to the government. And so one thing we want to do is show those exceptional in our community. This fun gal right here does the crosswalk, and 3 times a week she dresses up in some fun costume. She has her own social page. How great is that? Just again, getting back to the heart of your community. So for me, worthwhile to take a little bit of real estate to highlight that. And then downtown redevelopment with our fire station. Okay, that is it. Tell me what questions you've got about anything. We can talk about, we can also let you out early if you don't have any. It's 11:15, so I am happy to answer any questions on anything that you might have. Yeah, please. Let me understand your question better. Tell me exactly what you're doing.
So, like, not only social media, but also the different types of PR that individual departments do. So not necessarily just from the at a department level, what we can be doing to analyze our existing content and media, and then how to, on our own, improve it.
Yeah. Well, so, yes, I mean, I can certainly get you something, too. But I think the first thing you do is exactly what you said. You do a media audit. Look at what you're doing, see how effective it's being. So you tell me kind of what channels you're focused on right now. Social media.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram.
And that's it. Do you do any other use any other channel? What else?
Twitter and YouTube.
Twitter and YouTube. Okay. And then anything else? Do you do any outreach to media? Have you had anything that will
do a small amount of outreach?
Anything else that you feel like you're missing?
We have a newsletter that we haven't kept up on, so I think we should reinstate that. But the reason we haven't kept up on it is it's not effective.
Well, and that's a good point. If it's not effective, what else might be? You know, and one thing too, because you're at an ice rink, it might be interesting to do just a little survey. I mean, 3 questions. How would you like to hear news from us? You know, it can be something that simple. If you have a distribution list, you could just prepare a 3 or 4 question survey and send it out to your list, and then according to that, maybe define. And if you have the question for newsletter, would a newsletter be interesting to you? So I think go back to your patrons first, and or even a small focus group. If you have, you know, influencers within your group that, you know, they're advocates and they want you to succeed. So what would be their suggestions to you? How best to reach? You're both together in that? Okay. great right now. We're still struggling, but that was one hole that we had, was a lack of internal communications. You know, we're pushing out all of this exceptional city and Provo pillars, and then all of a sudden we realized, you know, our employees probably shouldn't hear about things from the news. And it's been really helpful working with the HR. They've given us job postings as well. So we run all of their job postings that they give us through our graphic design, and then we post those up. And that's been a nice streamlined process. So that's one way we brought HR into our PIO group. So one, our HR director, and we're still, this is something we still need to tackle, but one of the projects he would like us to take on directly for that is to do a really amped up LinkedIn page, because that's truly where you're probably going to get your interested people. And the beauty of it is all of the content that's being developed out here can be used on that LinkedIn channel. We just need to get our ducks in a row and do it. But I think that's probably one of the best tools is, you know, all of the videos and the graphics and things that we use. We just need to dedicate ourselves to keeping that LinkedIn page up so that it reflects what I just showed to you. You know, we're trying to reflect that to our citizens, this vibrant community with so much going on. But right now we've got a black hole on LinkedIn where people might look to us and say, what are these people rolling out? So that would be my suggestion. So I know that was his, and we just need to get on it. Okay, we're behind.
So, the community development director, so I've got wide variety, planning, engineering, building inspection, roads, property management, transportation.
You are my Dave Decker, who did the ASR. There's a lot of stuff in that, yeah. And they actually, just so you're aware, it's been about a year now, they brought on their own PIO, and he is fantastic. And so the other day when I was telling you about the snow story, I got the reporter, I called over to my Public Works PIO, and he was there arranging, so I didn't have to go over and do that. So again, just a nice sharing of resources, and we got forward. But there's so much good, so many stories to tell. I mean, like I told you, a project video, project listings, anything with roads, just so much, and everything is challenging to understand.
Right.
So it's a fun challenge to tackle, but lots of stories in your department, lots of stuff there. Okay, assessors, you guys are doing great.
Thank you. We're gonna put that on our social media.
All right. Use a quote. We learned that. All right.
I'm the director of the building inspection division, building official.
We go all part and parcel here. This is all of you not wanting to sit next to each other. Just listening.
Ours is inclined that we're sparking some ideas of the way that we can reach out and communicate with the public as to why we do what we do and giving them sustainable development.
Housing is another one. I mean, the state conversation on housing and affordable, attainable housing right now is a pressure cooker for every community. Provo's almost all built out. In that west side, we've got two kind of unique affordable housing projects. One's going to be targeted to our city employees, and another to kind of medical employees, nurses, police, fire. Innovative and unique, and absolutely we're going to tell that story. It's one of the very few housing stories that we are able to tell in Provo, so that'll be one. I think it would be good when you all get back to your department meetings, your individual department meetings, take 15, 20 minutes and brainstorm just exactly as you said. What are our stories that we're not telling in the individual departments? And then when you get together as a group, be prepared to share what those stories are. The beauty of it will be yours is going to peak something over here, and his idea is going to be something over here. And then the fun is, do we create, I used to call them content buckets in Sandy, but they were like divide the numbers, and we had like a Gov 101. We had certain type of, and they were social media content buckets, but it gave everybody the opportunity to have kind of an assignment that was an overarching theme, so that people, when they saw divide the numbers, all always looks the same. They always knew what they were gonna, what the experience was gonna be, but then we would brand it according to the department. So there'll be some fun things you guys can think through that you can, again, just force yourselves to create information. You've hit a lot of stuff. You're doing good stuff. Okay. Okay, sheriff's office is all here. Okay.
There's
So,
fairgrounds right here.
what's that?
Fairgrounds.
Okay,
It's
fairground.
part of
That's,
our,
all right. Any thoughts from police? Any questions? Any thoughts? Observations? Anything you want to share from your expertise would be helpful. So I know you guys have a lot of communications information. All right, you guys have spoken. Anything else from parks and Commissioner? What are you thinking with communications?
I think Commissioner Bolos has been doing a wonderful job, and I think she ought to make kind of one home.
I've been taking some notes, so
Yes,
if you don't
let's-
mind, and it's scattered because it's just my notes, but a few things I wanted to say. We brought communication in-house, and part of the reason for that, for me, to bring that topic up was because of you guys and what you do for the county. And when I was a mayor, I felt it was so important for my community to know what my people did. We had such a small staff. When I started as a mayor, we had 14 people employed full-time. When I left, I think we had 18. So really small. I felt like it was easy for me to just get the story out. And Brooklyn's my city. But she's going to beat me and whatever. You didn't do a good job. But West Haven. But I just really tried to help people understand what you do. Because, I mean, some of you are my constituents, but honestly, they're like second on my priority list. The employees are the top reason why I do what I do, and that's for the constituents. And so I wanted to bring it in-house because I thought it would be a more effective way to help the community know what you guys do for them. And I think especially because they're taxpayers, I think they're always interested in knowing what we're doing with their money. So it goes back to all of the sort of backroom departments like yours and others upstairs. You know that people just don't understand that their tax money is paying for what you do and it benefits them. And I just think it's important to find a way, and I don't know what that is. I mean, my mind's just rolling right now. I don't know what the way is, but I want people to know that when they pay their taxes to Weber County, they're getting something for it. And it's not just all the great things that you can see with your eyes every day and you can experience, you know, when you go up to the parks and the trails, like not all the tangible stuff, but the intangible stuff too. So that was a big catalyst for me wanting to do this and bring Jessica in. People know that they love living in Weber County. If you ask them, do you love living here? Yes. But do they know all the reasons why? They might know a few reasons why, but there are probably things that they love about Weber County that they haven't even thought about. And if we can help tell them, then like Nicole said, then they become our advertisers too, because they're excited to share with people what they know about the place they live. And that's free for us, right? If we can get people to start talking about how great we are, then that's free advertising for us.
And it's believable, whereas if
Right.
we say it, they
Right.
might not believe
The more we say it, the more they believe it, and then when they say it, everyone believes it because it's coming from the community itself. The talk about creating a team, I know, I feel like, and I've only been around a year, but I feel like this is so foreign. I've talked to Nicole about this. And there are departments that are doing a great job with messaging and just kind of siloed, which is great. It's better than nothing. And I've talked to Jessica. She has this fantastic communication plan for the county. And it's going to take some work. That's the second thought I had after I got so excited. My second thought was it's going to take some work. And it's going to be a struggle. I get it. But I want everybody to feel like part of this team. And when she reaches out to your department, there's the sign-up sheet that asks who in your department would be the point person for this. Maybe that person goes to these meetings and they don't even participate, but they're going to be listening. And then their heads are going to start turning about what can we do in my department. And I think that's how we're going to get this ball rolling, is by everyone participating in some way. Even if you don't feel like you have anything to share, someone can go. And I think it's planned for online. It's going to be so simple to just chime in once a week or once every other week. We don't know yet. And just listen to what everyone else is doing. It might, I like what Stan said. I'm starting to think of things. that's going to be really important for me. One other thing, just a couple of kind of housekeeping things, press releases. I just got familiar with press releases when I came to the county. I don't think I ever did one as the mayor, ever. So I didn't even understand what it meant to reach out to the press and tell them that you have a story. Jessica, taught me how to do that, and well, I don't do it. She taught me that it can be done. Anyway, I think she did a press release like within your first month here. You did something for Sean's department. Yeah, the wayfinding signs. And I'm like, wow, look at that. We can just tell the media that we want them to share something. So if you need a press release, Jessica is your guy. She also can help with social posts, and these will be going, if you don't have your own channels, we'll put them on the county's channel. And we want to get your message out. So if your wheels start turning and you think, hey, I want the public to know this. I want the public to know this really cool thing about John Muhleberry's office. Then let us know. We'll get it out there. We want people to know who you are. And that just goes back to my first point. It's about you guys and your employees, the staff. I want the public to know what you are doing for them. And so even though it seems mundane or boring or non-interesting, if we can find an exciting and engaging way to tell the public that, I think they're happier to share our stories. And that's really what it's about, is gaining the public support so that they can be part of your team. So, Jessica, unless you have something else.
Say a couple things, and one thing too, one story right now as we speak is the formation of the One Weber communications team. It would be, potentially something that you push out, if nothing else, on your social media channels. But the idea that you want to work better together, that you want to be more transparent, is something that your citizens need to know, that you care enough to do that. A couple of thoughts with what you said. I would suggest consistency in meeting, so every week for sure. I would say at least one time a month in person if you're primarily going to do it online. The reason I say that, my group, and it doesn't surprise me because we were meeting every single week, and then my group wanted to do every other week. Well, we meet every week, but it's once in person. The opposite week is Teams, which I'm willing to do, but what I'll tell you is there is something to getting your communicators around the table talking to each other. So I would say just don't do it all virtually. Even if it's once a month, get yourselves to your eyeball to eyeball and get to know each other, because as I said, that was one of the more surprising benefits that they have said back to me was 2 years ago I knew none of these people, and now I'm learning communications from them. So I think the unity that you are able to build is directly a result of what you put into it and how serious you are about it. Jessica, come on up. We'll give Jessica the last word. That's appropriate.
Anyways, I just wanted to say thank you everyone for coming. We're trying to do more of these trainings, and we hope it's been really beneficial. And then also just kind of piggybacking off of the whole being one Weber, having that one vision. We kind of got inspired from the idea of the sheriff's huddles that they do. They're 3 times a week, but they're 15 minutes, and ours would be a little different, but they just kind of go over okay, what's happening, who's an employee that we can highlight, what are some biggest challenges and things like that. So it's just kind of to keep people in the know of what's going on and how we can support each other and share that message. So just kind of keep that on your radar. We'll be sending out some more information and planning something along those lines. But thank you so much, Nicole. It's great to have you. And if anyone has any questions privately for Nicole, I'm sure she'll be happy to answer any of them. But and then lastly, most of you probably saw it, but there's a sign-up sheet for when you come in. If you could fill that out if you haven't, that would be great. So thank you, everyone.
You're dismissed. Right.